right, so I think that gives our viewers who might not be the ultimate space nerds out there a sort of setting the table. This is who you're listening to, and this is who you're talking to. It's not just weird guy with beard and camera. It's some actual incredibly knowledgeable reporters and authors. So let's jump right into it. Christian, how do you think Elon's vision for space contrasts with Jeff's? And do you like one or the other better? I mean, I know Elon's like, let's go to Mars, humanity multiplanetary, whereas Jeff is more like, Earth should be preserved. O'Neill cylinders. Is there a better one? Do you think they're both good?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So yeah, Musk is like the von Braunian, right? He wants to build the big rockets, go to Mars, and Jeff is, an O'Neillian, as you said, which is a physics professor named Gerard O'Neill who had this concept to build these huge space stations. I mean, when you say huge space stations, I mean they're like the size of cities and have people live on those forever. And the thing, Elon gets a lot of attention. Obviously, SpaceX is the force in the commercial space industry and really, the entire international space enterprise. But I don't feel like people sort of understand Jeff, as well, because Blue Origin hasn't done any, nearly the
Right.
same. They haven't had the same progress. But he's
Right.
also much more like conservative and quiet. But
That have been proposed, and if there's another one that I'm forgetting, like if Peter Beck has a grand vision that I'm forgetting, I'm sorry, Peter Beck. But this goes to any space CEO.
So I think I think on the first principles, they're both aligned. Like they both see the first, before you can do anything, you have to, Elon or Jeff says, build a highway to space. Musk says, rapid reusable launch. I mean, they're both thinking the same thing. Like the only way to unlock the future in space, whether it's on the moon or O'Neillian cylinders on Mars, is through, rapidly reusable launch vehicles. And so they both put a lot of effort into launching and landing rockets. People forget that Bezos was actually the first to land a booster with New Shepard, and then SpaceX followed a few months later, back in 2015. But once you get past that, they diverge pretty quickly, and you can really think of it pretty generally. Like Elon sees no value in the moon, and Jeff sees an enormous value in the moon. And so it's really going to come down to who executes, because Elon is participating in NASA's Artemis program. I would not say he's fully committed to Artemis. He's much more interested in Mars. Whereas Bezos, I think we're going to see him even commit more fully to Artemis in the coming months. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that goes. But basically, Elon is a Mars guy and Jeff is a Moon guy. And we'll see what happens in terms of who can execute on their vision over the next 10 or 20 years.
Always kind of boggled my mind that, I mean, I am not a rocket scientist, so I don't know the delta V calculations and everything. But like the moon's right there. It seems like a nice orbital refilling stop for Starship. No, but I'm not a rocket scientist. Ashley, thoughts on vision, maybe Bezosian versus Musk, or you can take that wherever you want. But that's where I wanted to start this off in my little note stock here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome to be on the podcast with all you guys and
Heck yeah,
some
dude.
of my favorite writers right here. And I obviously I agree with what the guys were saying. I think he's always benefited right from setting these super lofty goals with all of his companies. I mean, that's what creates kind of the religion around them and gets all these people to come work there. And so, Mars has been from the second I started reporting on SpaceX. I mean, people used to think it was completely nuts that he would even talk about this, and I guess lofty, audacious goal. I think Jeff, when he described realistic, but it's still a very lofty, audacious goal. I think Jeff, when he describes the stuff, he's just more practical, and in some ways, I think it's maybe. It's like less sexy to talk about building industry in low Earth orbit and moving stuff that spews a lot of pollution on Earth and into space. But to me, um, that is probably going to be the real story of like the next 10, 20 years. I just feel like we're heading in that direction. I think it's been harder to take Jeff as seriously as Elon for the last 20 years because Blue Origin has struggled in a lot of ways to keep pace with SpaceX, but that's kind of like starting to change. And I feel like we're entering like the second inning of all this, and SpaceX has this massive head start, but a lot of very interesting things are gonna kick off, and then just lastly, I think we're kind of lucky in some ways that Jeff and Elon have kind of alternated as richest people in the world off and on for the last whatever it is 6-7 years, and they just happen to both be really interested in space. I mean, the richest people in the world could be interested in anything, and they're both private companies. It would be very hard to do what either of them are doing as like a public enterprise, and so you just happen to have these two weirdos who are into this stuff and are willing to spend all this money, and it's fun to watch.
It is. It really is. I couldn't have said it better. All right, well let's keep rolling on, Christian, and this is going to go to everybody as well, but we'll start with Christian. In your book, Rocket Dreams, which just came out and is fantastic, you talk about a party that you went to that was off the record, that Bezos threw, that you could talk about because Lori Garver mentioned it in her memoir, which you didn't talk about it. You just said what she said. Anyway, all that is to say, what is like? I understand a small degree of what it's like to be around these sorts of people or be around the companies, but like you three all get ridiculously good access. You're embedded in these intimate moments. You're talking with the CEOs of these companies. What is that like? I mean, and how, like, not necessarily how do you do it, but how do you manage that? Like, is it challenging to stay objective?
Well, it's a great question. Obviously, Jeff owns the Washington Post. That makes life a little tricky. But we treat him without fear or favor the way we would treat anyone else. I actually think Elon likes the fact that I would write critically about Blue Origin and Jeff and hold them to account. And for a while there, particularly during the HLS lawsuit, Elon was using my Twitter feed to sort of jab at Jeff now and then. And like I say, I tried to use it. To be honest, to get better access to Jeff, and have only been, limited success with that. I did interview him for this book. I interviewed him for the last book. But the thing is, he's really smart, and he really understands space. He's really passionate about space. He loves talking about space. It's a lot of fun actually talking space with him. Eric Berger and I, was it like 2016, went down to Blue Origin for the first time with a small group of space reporters and toured around the factory in Kent, Washington, south of Seattle, with Jeff and at the time Rob Myerson and some others. And what was so amazing was on this tour of the factory, there was sort of a subject matter expert, like for avionics or propulsion or, the welding techniques they were using, materials experts. And they would have that subject matter expert to talk about whatever it was their subject was, and then Jeff would kind of go in and translate because he speaks that language and he really understood it. And I just don't understand why he's not out there more talking about it. And Elon's obviously really accessible and understands this stuff too. But I think it would do Blue, and you're seeing them be more public, and you're seeing Jeff get out there maybe a little bit more. But it's fun talking to him. It's fun talking to Elon too when you're talking about space because obviously, you start following his mind, and you're like, you're you're talking about some pretty crazy stuff within short order. But it is kind of nice to, and I will say too, it's a little bit hard to keep up because they're both very smart, but they're also, I think, smart in a way that they can speak to a large general audience for the most part. I mean, I think they're actually pretty good at that.
Which is so important, right? Like, you need to be able to communicate the message and get people fired up. Eric, thoughts, good buddy?
Yeah, so I would echo what Chris said. They're both a lot of fun to talk to. They're both very knowledgeable and passionate about space, and it is a genuine interest. It's not a grift for either of them. They are both in this for the reasons that they want to move humanity off-world in a meaningful way.
Who's the most fun to hang out with of all space CEOs? All right, we can move on.
I'm going. Well, back in the day, I could
I know
promise
your
you
answer.
that Max Polyakov was the most fun to hang out with.
I was sort of expecting that. Yeah.
I always found him hard to understand, but yeah, he could be pretty off the cuff. I would like to sort of say also, and I can't speak for Chris, but speaking for myself, it's not like we have extraordinary access to these companies. They're not inviting us in for monthly meetings or quarterly chats with the CEO or regular interviews. Like I don't have carte blanche to SpaceX or Blue Origin, but I do have a network of sources who know what's going on. And I think the leadership of both Blue Origin and SpaceX respect that. And so they want to make sure we have accurate information. But, it's not like we're inside these companies on a daily basis. We're talking to people who are inside or know what's going on. So, it's not really trying to balance things for me. It's just trying to sort of report what's really going on, and trying to share that with people. And if it's great, report great stuff, and if it's not great, report that as well. And it's really sort of. I have found over the years, if you report quality information and show passion and interest and write intelligently about a subject, people will come to you with that kind of information.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't disagree. Ashley, you've been embedded with Astra. You've been embedded in a variety of situations, and obviously the biography on Musk as well. You had to be around him a lot. I mean, any thoughts here? Just are these just regular guys? Are they truly extraordinary? What's going on?
A bit of both. I mean, it is fascinating. I mean, if you talk about Elon, Jeff, Peter Beck, I mean, those are the three that are jumping to mind right away. It's amazing the depth that they can talk about on these subjects, and then their obvious passion. I mean, most CEOs
lofty, audacious goal. I think Jeff
the business that they're running, but I would not say that most that they can all go sort of to the technical depth, depending on what type of company they run. And then I think for some people, it's a job. I'm sure they're passionate about it, but I would say all three of the guys that I just ticked off, it's like we said, I mean, this is their life's goal, and that, that's not the same for every CEO, and all of that comes through. When the heavens went on sale, I mean, you're lucky if you can kind of catch the companies at a bit younger days. I think you have more freedom to run around and
follow them. Then as they get bigger, it always gets harder and harder. And as things get more serious, it gets more difficult to have the same sort of access. And so that part's tricky. But yeah, I mean, the the technical depth that all three of those guys can talk to about it. I see sometimes, everyone always wants lots of people want to take shots at Elon for they're like, oh, he doesn't really know anything about aerospace or what. I mean, I just find some of that is just comical to me because these guys are
Because he clearly
all
does.
yeah, I mean they're extremely well versed on the. Does this mean they're like flawless and they never make bad decisions? Definitely not. But the depth of all three of them is just really impressive, and it's fun. It's fun to cover people who are like passionate about what they do.
I would just add to what said there by Ashley is that these are not regular guys. Like in my opinion, especially when you're around Elon, like he's pretty intense. There have been a few moments when I'm around him when he's been unguarded and sort of much more human, but a lot of the time it's like pretty intense. And in one of my books, like I quote Zach Dunn. Are we allowed to curse? Is it okay?
Sure.
Okay. So he was describing the meetings around the first Falcon 9 failure when Elon would have these meetings, and he said you had to be fucking on your A game around him. You had to be perfect because otherwise he was just going to jump you. And like in talking to Elon, it just seems like he's on a different plane sometimes, and so you really have to like be 100% dialed in. And it's not a casual conversation. I feel like Bezos is a little bit more casual. I think if I could go to a bar and have a beer with Jeff Bezos, I'd feel a little more comfortable because he's a little bit more relaxed. And Ashley's had a lot more interaction, I think, with Peter Beck than either of us had. And I'm not quite sure how he would be in that setting.
Like Peter's incredibly nice. I would say he's similar to Elon in that you're gonna have the most luck if you're like talking rockets as opposed to just blabbering. Like while you're having a beer, you need to be focused about what you're talking about while you're having that beer. I have like the least experience with Jeff, but my sense sometimes is that he seems a little more conversational and can go different places. But to echo Eric's point, I mean, Elon doesn't just he's not like super easy just to he's like never the guy I would imagine like going to a baseball game with and just sitting there hanging out. You gotta be a little dialed in and sort of pushing things forward.
Right. Makes sense. All
right, no small talk. Sorry. No small talk.
Okay, no, you're good. You're good. We should probably talk about Starship, given that it's flight day and we're like 2 hours and change from the opening of the window. So, Christian, we're going to come back to you. Do you think Elon and Gwynn might sort of regret not going for a more middle-of-the-road approach versus this highly iterative approach that they've taken with Starship, given where we are now and that they still haven't reached orbit?
I don't think so. I think that they are experimenting in ways where they're, the payload is the data, and that, they're stressing this thing repeatedly. And the failures, I'm one of those guys. I feel like the failures are good, and there's no right now real customer that's depending on Starship on a day-to-day basis. Like when they were flying Falcon 9 and iterating at the same time, going to block 2 and block 3 and all the way to block 5, they had customers that were watching and doing that. So even while they were iterating, I don't know that they could take the risks that they can take with Starship. And the fact of the matter is, it's an incredibly complicated vehicle. I mean, it's just massive. And unless you go down there and see it, I mean, we can see it right now on the screen. It looks like a rocket on the stand. It looks like a big rocket on the stand. But until you stand next to it or watch it launch, you're just like, oh my gosh, like there's nothing like it. And the fact that it's fully reusable, and the fact that it's going to return to the launch site and do the belly flop and have heat shield or the tiles that are going to be rapidly reusable. The fact that it's going to have to dock and do propellant transfer. I don't know. I don't. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that they're learning and they make breakthroughs every single time they fly.
I'll tell you who has regrets, Jack, and that's NASA.
Go for it.
They have serious regrets about this process. And Chris said that no one's relying on it on a daily basis, but the reality is
Artemis?
that Artemis program is absolutely relying on Starship, and it's the country is at serious risk of losing the race back to the moon to China. Extraordinarily embarrassing, and at some point there will be a reckoning, as a result
Eric,
of all that. Yeah.
what do you say to people that say, "But we've already been back to the moon. It's not a race."
Yeah, so first of all, like the U.S. government has framed it as a race, and the acting administrator Sean Duffy is running around saying we're not going to let China beat us back to the moon, and so like we have defined that as the end goal, getting to the moon before China, getting back to the moon before China gets there. And the reality is, from a geopolitical standpoint, it would be an enormous loss for the United States' prestige around the world, and it would be a singular moment China could point to when they're trending up on all of these other different metrics, and economic, political, and just in terms of their standing in the world, that it could be a singular moment where they could point to and say, look, we have passed the United States as a technological superpower. So,
But doesn't that
stakes are very high.
that ring hollow? Given that we're going back with, like, they're accomplishing what we did. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a geopolitical upset. I think it would, but does it not ring hollow because they're going back with a smaller lander like we did initially, and we're going back with a frickin' behemoth?
I don't think it gets framed that way. I think it's like, why hasn't the United States been back there for 60 years? And why can't they get to the moon if China can? And I just think that it's going to be very difficult to frame it that way. And I agree, there's certainly an argument to be made. And I much prefer the U.S. approach to leaning into sustainability, in space refueling. Like, these are the right ways to go about it. I'm just saying there will be serious consequences for losing. And so, like, when you talk about an interim step or a different design, one could imagine a Starship that is 1/3 the size of that vehicle, that requires maybe 2 or 3 refuelings, and it's easier to land on the moon. But that's not the vehicle SpaceX wants to build, and so that's not the vehicle NASA is going to get.
Ashley, what do you think with the whole iterative development cycle on Starship? Do you think there was a quote? I forget where it was. What reporter got it? I'm such a terrible person, but it was a quote from Gwynn a while back that if they weren't flying crew on Starship faster than they did on Falcon, it'd be a quote major company fail. And I think that timeline was 6 years, and we're past it. Do you think they expected to be further along by now?
I imagine, yes. I mean, I think this is probably taking longer than they thought, and has kind of looked differently than they would have liked. I was thinking about this a lot this morning. I went back and I looked at like the Project Corona launches. They were putting up a rocket like every couple of weeks, blowing things up left and right. I mean, there's an element to this which is that it's like really unusual in rocket history to some degree, that this is all taking place on a live stream out in the open, and you get to see these failures. So the failures and the successes just right in front of your face. And there's obviously a world where if SpaceX was a public company, this wouldn't be tolerated. I'm sure there would be so much pressure to do things a different way. I hear everything Eric's saying. I mean, this is like, obviously, I think NASA and the government have no one to blame except for themselves for even putting themselves in a position like this. And to the extent that China gets there first, it's more of it's less of a knock, I think, on our technological expertise, and more of a knock on how bureaucratic and sort of pathetic we've become in some ways of like doing important things. And it's also this is like the Elon Musk of it all. I mean, this is a guy who wants what he wants. That doesn't always line up with what the country wants and what the politicians want, and they're now at his mercy as a result of that. I think Eric's right that I think the optics of it would be bad for sure in the short term, even though we have been there before. However, in my head, SpaceX is still so far ahead of everyone else that, if you really were able to pull off something even more spectacular in relatively short order, I suspect we'd get over what China had accomplished on the moon and kind of move past that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I hope. This is a crazy timeline. I'll refrain from going down that rabbit hole in my mind. Let's go to another question. This one is from a viewer. What are y'all hearing? Speaking of the situation we're in, being NASA and the bureaucracy's fault, y'all hearing anything about Jared Isaacman potentially getting renominated as we watch this fuel truck leaving here? I know there's been some chatter of late, and Jared was so gracious when the nomination was rescinded. We'll come to you, Christian. I was joking on the flame trench we did this week. Like, I want to pull the excitement lever. I want to be very happy, but I'm cautious. We've been burned. Like, are you hearing anything?
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting that there was a report in Bloomberg saying that they were talking. I thought it was interesting that Jared was at the White House. Was it like a month ago, 6 weeks ago? Relatively recent with a lot of other tech executives. I heard also that he actually flew Sean Duffy at the Oshkosh Air Show
No, no
in
kidding.
like MiG 29, so that they were talking. Um, but I also hear that Sean Duffy wants to stay, likes it, told the president that he can do both. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people in the community are eager to have Jared renominated. And I do think it's interesting just to tie it to the China question. One thing that's been fascinating to me as someone who's based in DC is here you have Sean Duffy and the Trump administration and Ted Cruz talking about, China getting there first. And yet Mike Pence, talking about that, in the first Trump administration. But you also had Bill Nelson talking about it, the Democrat from Florida when he was NASA administrator. So it's almost across party lines that there is this real concern about China getting back. And I totally agree with Eric. And just one quick anecdote, because people, I don't know that they take China seriously because they're like, we're NASA, we did it. We have Elon, we have Jeff, we can do it. Well, China, they're really now just two flags on the moon. And all the Apollo flags that were laid during the Apollo era have essentially been, bleached white by the radiation environment of the moon. But when China went a couple of years ago, they built a flag out of composite materials for one of their Chang'e missions that would withstand that harsh lunar environment. And then for this Farside sample return mission, on their last lunar mission, they built a flag that they unfurled near the South Pole made out of basalt. I mean, essentially volcanic rock that they found on Earth. And one of their Chang'e missions that would withstand that harsh lunar environment. And then for this Farside sample return mission, on their last lunar mission, they built a flag that they unfurled near the South Pole made out of basalt. I mean, essentially volcanic rock that they found on Earth. And one of their Chang'e missions that would withstand that harsh lunar environment. And then for this Farside sample return mission, on their last lunar mission, they built a flag that they
What's going on?
South Pole made out of basalt, essentially volcanic rock that they found on Earth.
Can we play?
Win if we're able to make it back before then. The reality is that there's been 20 years of pretty terrible space policy dating to the loss of Space Shuttle Columbia, and it's just a real mess. And all of the people who are saying that this is terrible and that there are problems, and like the Bill Nelsons, the Ted Cruzes, these are the people who kind of got us into this mess. So it's now sort of for them to have concern. And what's frustrating to me, I guess, and I'm coming to the Jared Isaacman question you asked, Jack. What's frustrating to me is that they're not actually doing anything to fix the problem. And like Sean Duffy, seems like a nice guy. Talks well, wants to do good at NASA, but he's got to manage the Department of Transportation.
Okay. I got this, and then it's gonna be twice. So funny.
To build their flag, which is up there right now. So I think that to me sort of symbolizes their intention, and whoever the NASA.
And so like Duffy's making lots of television appearances, but the changes that need to be made are not there. And so I'm a little bit concerned. I'm hearing, just like Chris, that he has told President Trump that he wants to be the NASA administrator. I think that's because he sees there's a lot more good news to be had as NASA administrator than there are, with like air traffic controller strikes at DOT and things like that. So that's kind of why he's pushing to be NASA administrator.
But I imagine it's more fun to be NASA admin than Secretary of Transportation. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
So like you need someone, whether it's Jared or not, in there to really push NASA forward and be giving it their full time. And I'm just, Duffy seems more interested in it for the television appearances and sort of what it does for his image than really fixing the systemic issues that need to be addressed.
Got it. It's so frustrating. It's like watching a 20-year-long train wreck, and like 20 years ago, everyone was like, "Oh no, don't do that," and then it's just the trains for 20 years just very slowly crash into each other.
And if Artemis goes next year, if Artemis 2 goes around the moon and it's a big success, and you've got these great astronauts, everyone's going to be cheering. Sean Duffy's going to be cheering. That doesn't really bring us any closer to landing on it.
Nope.
Yeah, and the Jared thing. Well, it was such a sad fallout from Elon and Trump's like personal squabble, because I was like the first administrator I felt sort of excited about in a really long time. I still don't even know. There's so many parts of NASA I still admire and am into, but I just don't even know if it's like fixable and what that does to help us in this in any sort of race in a meaningful amount of time.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. All right, well let's be a little bit more.
We're all sad.
No, it's all right. You gotta have highs and lows in life, right? Like we can be hopeful that Jared does get the renom, or if he doesn't, we can be hopeful that SpaceX absolutely kicks butt today, and with future versions of Starship coming down the line, because one way or another we're going back, and a matter of who gets there first. Frankly, I mean I care because the headlines are going to be annoying, but I don't really care. Like, let's just go. Let's start doing work on the moon. Let's figure out what that's like, and let's, do some science. Let's learn more about our place in the solar system. It's going to happen one way or the other, thanks to Starship. But yeah, politics. Am I right? But yeah, let's keep chugging along here. I do think we have an update really quickly from Alex for a status update on the stack.
Yeah.
Alex, are you there?
I'm here. It's always nice to hear these conversations. They are very much needed. But of course, we are still keeping track of everything that's going on here at Starbase with Flight 11. They are already starting that chill down of the tank farm. We can see there the famous Pope vent, as we call it, right? And so that's just part of the chill down. They need this whole thing has been basking on the sound, if you will, right, for a long time. It needs to go down to all of those cryogenic temperatures. So they're loading the subcoolers, getting ready for propellant load, hopefully in less than an hour from now. They're getting everything ready there on the tank farm for that propellant load. Again, it's not started yet. Don't get ahead of ourselves here, but it'll start in hopefully 50 minutes from now. Here at the roadblock, you can see there's still those two transporter those transport stands there still waiting there, and of course we have also the road closure here closer to the river lot. Just you can see a lot of people already piling up there to watch the launch. It's really exciting to see that so many people are interested in this launch. And of course we have here from Rocket Ranch, shout out to them as well, from the outpost. And yeah, everybody's getting ready. It's getting close, man. It's less than 2 hours from now.
All right, the hype train is sailing. I think we also have something from Ryan.
I'm going to do a weather report. This is going to be the shortest weather report in your life. Weather looks good. Back to you, Jack. Just kidding. The winds are pretty much perfect. The sun, pretty much perfect. The clouds, there's barely any clouds to be seen. We're a little bit of moisture we're looking out for, but it's really nothing of concern. This is like the exact opposite what we had on those first 2 attempts of Starship Flight 10. There's no pesky anvil clouds. There's nothing of that. You know, it's looking good. I'm confident, and I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, gents, let's talk Artemis some more, because I do agree that, come Artemis 2 next year, in some sense it's like big whoop, it doesn't get us any closer to landing on the moon. I do think, though, that a lot of people in the public will become acutely aware that, this moon program actually is a thing and exists. What's interesting to me is Blue, as we talked about at the start of this segment, is generally less communicative, more secretive than SpaceX, and yet they've really been pumping the gas on various Blue Moon lander, updates and hardware videos that they've been posting, things like that. Updates on engine testing, and SpaceX is like, I don't know, dare I say, conspicuously silent or quieter than Blue. Christian, do you think this is indicative of SpaceX sort of, and Musk really not caring about the moon as much? Do you think Blue's trying to steal the moon?
I think Blue would love to steal the moon. I don't know that it's going to happen. I mean, they've flown New Glenn once. Whether they can now fly something all the way to the moon with people, land safely, dock with another spacecraft in lunar orbit, do all of that, I think remains to be seen. But yeah, I mean, Elon, it's all about Mars. You walk into Hawthorne, you see all the Mars pictures. Mars is why I founded the company. I see, the HLS contract as a way to get money for Starship. The technology maybe is not that different. It helps you get a lot of launches under your belt. It allows you to, do the testing and the design on the reusable heat shield, on having a fuel depot in orbit, which you're going to need for Mars as well. Do a landing on another celestial body. And then really, I mean, Starship is to, the next generation of Starlinks, which fuels the whole Mars vision. So I think it did surprise me, like going back, was it 2017 at the IAC conference in Adelaide? Clearly you could read the tea leaves and see that the incoming Trump administration was going to be focused on the moon. And that's when Elon, talked much more. Like the year before in Guadalajara, it was all about Mars. And then at the IAC in 2017, he starts talking about like Moonbase Alpha and saying like, why haven't we been back to the moon already? So I don't know. I think it's a way to get money and contracts and experience for SpaceX. But for Jeff, I mean, the guy famously recovered the F1 engines from the Saturn V rocket that flew, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins to the moon. He got those, and they're now on display at the Air and Space Museum here in Washington, D.C. So yeah, he's all about the moon.
Eric, what do you think? Does Blue have a chance to land a lander on the moon before SpaceX gets an HLS lander on the moon?
Yes, they do. The Blue Moon Mark 1 is almost ready to go. It's going to come to Houston here in just a little bit and undergo some testing.
You have to chop it up first. I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
No, don't get me started on that nonsense. Talking about moving the shuttle. So it's going to come here for atmospheric testing, and then it will go back to the launch site in Florida, and they're hoping maybe to launch it in January. I don't know if they're going to make that deadline, but it's coming soon, and it's a huge lander. And as I reported a couple of weeks ago, now there is an internal plan at Blue Origin to use multiple Blue Moon Mark 1s for a human landing. And they think they could do this maybe within the next 4 years. Now, as Chris said, that's a big ask for a company that's launched one orbital rocket and has done none of the in-space stuff that SpaceX has done with dozens and dozens of Dragon missions. However, using Blue Moon Mark 1s with that architecture would not require in-space refueling, right? And so that's a big deal. And I think that if you're the Trump administration and you're interested in, a second pathway to basically, put humans on the moon before China, you ought to be exploring that Blue Moon Mark 1 option, because Blue Moon Mark 2, the human rated lander, much larger, is not going to be ready for a long time. I mean, that's
Right.
just going to take more time. And so that's really the only realistic option, I think, to Starship. And I think you could create a competition where you would spur both of them forward and maybe hold SpaceX's feet to the fire a little bit more on their lunar program, which I think we all agree is not really the priority of the company.
I mean, there was that moment. Ooh, look, the nitrogen boil off from the subcoolers is starting to make its way across the mud flats there. That's a great sign. The tank farm's coming to life. Oh man, I don't even remember what I was going to say. I'm just lamenting the fact that SpaceX doesn't care about the moon as much. Go ahead, Ashley.
Well, I mean, I think if I remember right, when you were first kind of asking your question, there was an element to like how the public would feel about all of this. I'm curious if like what you guys think. I wonder if I kind of wonder if the average American cares if China puts a human back on the moon before we do or not. I'm not totally convinced. I sort of feel like I think the public,
I think a lot of them,
despite all the many words that we all write, I think is sometimes kind of confused about what's actually happening in space. I think when a lot of the takes that I see on Elon's so polarizing that people will like seize on SpaceX sometime as some kind of like point of weakness, which
it makes
I find
people dislike space, which is disappointing, but it is what it is.
And there's just elements to this that are like hilarious and sad, because if SpaceX didn't exist, like our entire conversation would be about how China is dominating space and the U.S. has nothing, to do about it.
We are lucky. We're very lucky to exist. Like we've talked about, at this point in time, where the two richest guys in the world actually do care about space.
I don't. Sometimes I think we get fixated on this, and the politicians do, but it could be a big waste of time in the big picture.
To answer your question, Ashley, I do think the general public will care if and when China beats us back to the moon, but I don't think they know that they will care necessarily. I think they'll only care after the fact, when it's like, when the sucker punch hits you in the face, it hurts. But you might not always be looking for that sucker punch. And I think a lot, like in the same way, the opposite happened when we did Falcon Heavy, or when we had, Bob and Doug headed to the ISS for the first time on American rocket, American soil. I had people, friends, family, old high school friends, people messaging me because they know what I do, saying, "Oh man, that was the coolest thing! Like, I can't believe we're still this great." And it's like, yeah, we are. So hopefully we get that version of the timeline, and not the other version where my friends and family who don't follow this stuff closely message me like, "Wait, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I could talk your ear off about it." So I don't know. Hopefully things go well. But
I still think the Tesla Roadster was still the biggest thing that
was a good one.
People paid attention to. Maybe we should just focus on something like that.
I don't know, man. I got to disagree, Ashley. I understand what you're saying, because public interest in space is a mile wide and an inch deep. Like, they don't care. It's that's the reality. It's like most people are not paying attention to any of this stuff. But when you get video of a Chinese astronaut planting a Chinese flag on the moon, and releasing a statement and kind of dancing on the grave of the United States, I mean, that is going to be extremely powerful. And I think Americans will care. There will be a very significant political price to pay. If we look back, what happened, with their first moon race, it's still geopolitical significance is huge. And you know better than I do, actually, like what's happening in China in terms of their economy, in terms of their technology and investment in all sorts of areas, from green energy to nanotechnology. I mean, they are making the kinds of investments oriented to the future. And so but a lot of that stuff is below the surface. You don't really see that on a day-to-day basis. I think this is a moment that could really break through. That would be like, this is the passing of the torch from the United States era to the Chinese era. I think that's how it can be framed.
Maybe it's the wake-up call we need. We seem to let the supply chain stuff and the advances here and there, like high-speed rail. We see what's happening. California doesn't move any faster. I don't know. Maybe that would finally be the thing that cracks through and people would wake up.
But Jack, you're exactly right. Like if you take SpaceX out of the equation, like the United States in a lot of ways, from
Yep.
military space to launch, is behind the Chinese space program at this point.
It's pretty wild when you think about it, but I'm definitely glad we exist in a time where Falcon 9 and also Starship exist. It's pretty wild. I mean, Christian, in your book, you talk about how GPS is a public utility, and I really enjoyed that part in particular because, hey, guess what? If you out there use GPS, it comes from space. And the military gave that to the general public. Well, I want to say for free. I mean, we paid for it. It's kind of ours. But point being, Starlink is actually enabling internet around the world to people, and it's not a free public utility. I wish it was like GPS. That would be great because more internet around the world, more better. But what do you think is the end goal here for Starship? Is it just Starlink? Is it just Mars? Do you think that we're going to see, HABs built into these things, or is SpaceX just going to do the bare minimum they can do to get to Mars with this vehicle?
Well, I think they're all interrelated with Mars, obviously, as the end goal, right? That's the point of SpaceX. That's the point of Starship. And, you see those animations SpaceX has of, the Martian surface, with all of these starships and then the dome, the habitats parked all over it. But just to talk about China in a minute, it's astonishing to me when I'm going around on the book tour now, and a lot of people have no idea. And these are people who are coming to a book event about space. They don't know that NASA is about to launch a crew of astronauts around the moon. And I think that there will be interest in it when they do that, but I think it will be fleeting, particularly in today's media environment where their attention is just so fractured. And even in 1969, people got bored of the moon. And we're, wanting NASA to sort of move on. And I think, it'll be a flick for a moment when Artemis 2 happens. So I agree with Eric that China landing on the moon will be a big deal. But it's interesting, though, because part of me, I keep wondering why the Trump administration now is casting it and putting all the chips on the table and saying we're in a space race with China and we cannot lose, when the fact is that the chances are they are going to lose. But I don't know that there's going to be a political price to pay, because the chances are they may be out of office by the time China lands on the moon. It's like the next guy's problem, which is illustrative of all of the issues that you keep having, with America's space program that, by the way, China does not have, right? Because they don't have Republicans and Democrats and changing administrations. And there's no this is a military space program, this is the Pentagon, this is the CIA, this is the NRO, and this is NASA, and they're separate. They're all intertwined together in a way that I think is problematic, from a democratic point of view, but can make them maybe move a little bit faster.
All right. I think we should talk about Starship some more. Maybe a happier subject. It's launch day, am I right? The thing today being tested is the last version 2 ship and the last version 2 booster. Let's just put our chips on the table. How do we think the ship is going to do today? There's a whole bunch of missing tiles. I know they're doing less material testing, but there still appears to be quite a lot of missing tiles on that heat shield, perhaps for some intentional stress testing. Ashley, how do you think ship's going to do today?
Oh dear. I think, I feel like we've been still seeing progress. I don't know. I feel good. I was digging around on the heat shield stuff a little bit the last couple of days, but I don't know. This one feels, I don't want a Debbie Downer, this exciting moment. It feels like a little bit more of the same, doesn't it? At least to me. Yeah, I don't know. I feel confident in SpaceX's progress.
I think the fact that this is the final launch from Pad 1 in this configuration, and the final launch of a Starship stack that looks like this, makes it a little bit extra special. At least for me, from like a content creator point of view. But you're right. It's a similar profile. It's still suborbital. So I get it. You're not Debbie Downer. You're Donnie. Whatever the opposite of Debbie Downer is. Eric, what do you think, man? How's Ship going to do today?
I mean, I fully expect it to be successful. And if it's not, then that's not to be Debbie Downer. Sorry, I think that's a really a step back, because they've had all these teething pains with version 2 of the ship and booster, the ship particularly, and if they sort of, this one fails, then that's a step back. The reality is we're kind of all in the Starship V3 waiting room, because the key to unlocking everything is getting to a semi-stable configuration of Starship and then just popping those things off one after the other, because you've got to get lots of flight experience, you've got to get the refueling test, and you've just got to start refueling vehicles and launching Starlink. So it kind of feels like I mean, look, it's a Starship launch. It's going to be super exciting. It's incredible to watch, and you're right. Standing near the pad, looking up at that thing, it's incredible. They're massive vehicles, but this feels like, all right, let's get past this and see what Starship V3 can do, and let's see if we can really start jumping that cadence up.
Absolutely. I mean, Christian said it himself. You cannot get a sense of scale for these vehicles unless you're there in person, and even being in the dunes, looking at a full stack, even then, it's very hard. When you're standing on the property line, you can look up at it and be like, wow. I think the only true way to get a sense of scale is when they roll past you on the road, and you're literally like, okay, if things go south, I need to run that way. It's a really special place, Starbase. Christian, how do you think Ship's going to do today?
I think it'll be good. I think we're going to get some cool views of it re-entering, like we always do in the plasma build-up, which is one of my favorite parts of the mission. But then the question is, okay, then you go to V3, and it's like, all right, it seems like they solved the problems on V2. They got the ship going. They had those mishaps, and then are there going to be some growing pains with V3? And then is the sort of general public going to be like, oh, I thought they had this down. They're going to have more problems again, maybe not realizing that they're dealing with, a pretty significant upgrade in some new system. So I'm not saying that V3 is going to have some growing pains, but I think it's entirely possible that they do. When I was trying to get
plausible.
Yeah, I mean, when I was trying to get Elon, I was messaging with him. This was in January to talk to him for the book, and we ended up just sort of going back and forth a little bit about V3. And his quote to me was, version 3 converges to greatness. Which, as Eric said, I think you really need version 3 to unlock all the things to be able to get to the moon and to Mars. But again, we're talking about a huge upgrade, complicated vehicle. The first 2, 3, 4 flights may not be perfect, and then it's all of a sudden we're like, oh, the headline may become, well, SpaceX is struggling again, when they're just sort of working out the kinks of a new system.
I think, and again, all this goes back a little bit to some of the stuff we talked about earlier. I mean, I think SpaceX, when they were doing all the grasshopper stuff, I mean, it was happening out in Texas. We didn't see it as much, during the most of their reusability early day trials, and then I think they just convinced us all in our head that they're almost flawless, for this big run, and you just get so used to them doing everything kind of faster and better, especially when it comes to aerospace, where everything is always late and worse than you thought, and SpaceX kind of trained you to think a little bit differently. And so, I find some of this hard to just wrap my head around, just simply from the way SpaceX has kind of imprinted their modus operandi in my head. And then I find the whole thing, this gap. This is, I don't know, we talked about it earlier, I suspect this has gone slower than SpaceX had thought. It's definitely gone slower than I had thought in my head. And so this gap of opening up space for Rocket Lab against the Falcon 9, for Blue Origin to sort of make progress on different fronts. We saw Stoke Space raise a ton of money. I mean, Eric Schmidt's come in with relativity. All these things are just, I think we're preparing for like a really interesting couple of years when sort of the Falcon 9 competition landscape might change while all this is going on. So I don't know. It's fascinating from like a spectator point of view, if nothing else.
It really is. Sometimes I wish I had a fast forward button. It's, as fast as things are moving, sometimes I'm like, oh man, I'm 37. Like, oh geez. Like, okay, well, how much of the show do I get to watch?
There's no better time to be alive and interested in space than right now, John.
And right now?
I'm convinced
Yeah.
this is a more exciting time than even the Apollo era, I believe.
I mean, you couldn't go to a public beach in South Texas and barbecue and have a fire pit and drink with your friends like 300 feet away from the world's largest rocket by a factor of 3 in the Apollo era. Like, no shade to the Apollo era. I wish I could have been there and seen humans walk on the moon. But yeah, we truly are extraordinarily lucky. So version 3, do we think they, I mean, we talked about this just a little bit. Do we think they're going to go through some of the same teething pains? Eric, I'll throw it to you first. I mean, we've seen a lot of component testing being queued up in the form of a bunch of different test tanks getting assembled, which is not necessarily something we saw as much for version 2. I'm optimistic that there won't be growing pains, but I do think it's entirely plausible that there will be. Sort of, what are you expecting from version 3, Eric?
First of all, I have no idea on the technical side of things how long it's going to take. I do think before this started, if you had asked me if we're on flight test 11, still wondering whether the ship is going to get to space and it has not gone orbital yet, I would have not expected that. I would have said that's pretty far below my expectations. But what I struggle with as a reporter in trying to convey to readers and to people is just how much of a quantum leap forward Starship is compared to every other rocket that's been designed and built before. It's not just the size.
I don't think people really understand, because it's not just that they're trying something hard. They're not trying to just go fast. They're trying to go fast and do something incredibly hard.
Yes, incredibly hard, and trying to bake in reuse into this monstrous vehicle, and especially the upper stage reuse part of it, which obviously has been a real challenge to them, is just people need to give SpaceX some grace, right, with their expectations and for what they're trying to achieve. And so I think on one hand, you can question whether this is the right architecture for humans to go back to the moon, right? Because it's not really developed for that. But I don't think it really makes too much sense to question the vision behind what Starship is, because this is a problem that Elon and the smartest aerospace engineers have now been trying to tackle for 20 years. And so I think if they've decided that this is the optimum design of a vehicle to unlock rapid reusability and super heavy lift, then I suspect they're correct. And it's just an enormously difficult problem to solve, and it has never been solved in history before. So it's maybe going slower than some of us would have liked, but clearly they're making progress. And you know, we can only really stand on the sidelines and watch and hope for the best with version 3.
We'll definitely all be cheering version 3 on, in the same way that we'll be cheering the last version 2 ship on an hour and 25 minutes to go. Christian, how do you think version 3 is going to go?
Again, it's so hard to say. Are there going to be growing pains? Yeah. But, you know, the SpaceX way is there are growing pains. They test, they fail, they innovate, they come back, and they figure it out because they're that good. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say from the outside without inside knowledge and not being an engineer. But as someone who's followed it for a long time, I mean, actually I have, see if I can find this. This is, I don't know if you can see this. This is the mission patch for the 4th flight of Falcon 1 that someone within SpaceX gave me years ago. And it's like, you think about SpaceX, you think about that, down to their last flight. If that doesn't go, they don't exist, right? So I think now they, you know, I bring that up to show that I think ultimately it will be successful. Whether that's on the 1st flight or the 8th flight, it's hard to say.
Got it. Ashley, version 3.
I don't think I'm going to top any of that, and I don't have such a cool mission patch to just pull out. What do you have that just at your fingertips, Christian, man?
I have all my mission patches.
So when Sawyer's on, he often will flex and show like a piece of shuttle hardware or like talk about astronauts he's met. I think we just got our first Christian Devon.
When Ashley when he was talking about early days, I was like trying to like when I went off camera, I was sorting through my mission patch pile.
I'm jealous now, man. That's a good one.
Well, I'm jealous for the title of your book, When the Heavens Went on Sale.
I should be back. Am I back?
It's an amazing book, as is Liftoff and Reentry. Amazing books. When the Heavens Went on Sale, amazing book, amazing title too. I just
thank you. Everybody hated it that I wrote about. mostly the planet guys. They thought it was too crass and capitalistic. But then now here they are.
I mean, if everybody likes
public company.
Have you done your job?
No. I was really happy with it.
I can't hear anybody.
I can still hear Christian.
So I have a Falcon 1 patch. It's on my shelf framed to fight for. It's the first one with the
testing. Somebody
before the cooler.
We're talking.
We're talking, Jack. But
we can definitely hear Jack.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you guys were talking about the different design philosophies and things like that, and that's one of the things that we're looking at here, right? This is the final launch of this version of Starship. We're sort of turning the page, and you guys have books, so I guess that's an appropriate expression, right? And so now I guess we should turn the page and sort of try to like what is your thoughts? What are your thoughts for today's launch? Because we've been talking about all the politics and everything and all that. I want to hear your thoughts. Like, do you think it's going to go great? We have that dynamic banking thing. I don't know, maybe Eric, you can go first on that one.
I fully expect success today. This is like the 5th flight of version 2, 6th flight, I'm not sure. They've flown it a lot. It's a very similar profile to the last flight, and so you would expect that they have learned, and if the rocket is changed, they've only made improvements to it. So I would expect and hope for success today. A pretty clean mission.
Yeah, and Christian?
I agree. I think at this point, early on, it's trying to push the boundaries, doing different things. If you fail, the payloads of data. I think on this one, they want a good last flight. I think, obviously from a technical and engineering standpoint, they want to do it as they go into version 3. Also, I think from a PR standpoint, not that that's necessarily what Elon cares about.
Yeah.
I don't think he's being like, I want NASA to look at this and say, like, all right, they're back on the ball and I got better headlines. I don't think he cares about that at all. But I think it is now part of the narrative. And, just being realistic that from a PR standpoint, a launch would be good and a failure would not.
And you, Ashley?
Well, I'm not going to be the one who says it's going to blow up on the pad. That would be really sad. I think it'll do well.
No.
No, I think it has to do. I think it's sort of like I fully agree with what Eric was saying a bit earlier. I just think it would be massive step backwards if it doesn't do well, and you want to carry some momentum into all these things that they have to accomplish that are coming up, and so some of it's is psychological. I think the company could kind of use heading into V3 with a win behind it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really hope we get through all that. I think Jack. Speaking of recoveries, I guess.
Hey,
Jack is
who
back.
let you take over?
You went away.
Had a bit of a Wi-Fi hiccup there.
Are you on Starlink, Jack, or what's going on?
I am not on Starlink.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, it's my fault. It's my bad. Wow. Okay, that was a really good discussion. Thank you all so much. I think we're getting very close to wrapping it up here. Really quick though, Christian, what's your optimistic prediction for the next 5 to 10 years in space flight? Where do we end up in, say, 2030, middle of the 2030s, if all the good levers get pulled?
Yeah, I think multiple. I mean, just take the moon for example. I think multiple landers on the moon, crewed and uncrewed. Given all the companies from Intuitive Machines to Blue Origin to SpaceX. But since we talked a lot about international, not just China, but India as well. I mean, nobody talks about India, but they've got a huge, robust space program. I don't know. I think by the middle of the 2030s, the commercial space stations are viable as well. I mean, I think those are some big things. And the thing too about Starship, to end it on sort of an optimistic note, if that's going, think about the science, the number of telescopes that can be launched on that thing that don't have to be folded up like a piece of origami to fit into the fairing, and the discoveries that we can make about the solar system and the universe when you're able to have that kind of access to space could be extraordinary.
Absolutely. Ashley?
Man, I'm trying to be realistic here. I get excited when we get to middle of the 2030s. I think middle 2030s. I think we're talking about Blue Origin, Rocket Lab, and SpaceX as the dominant American space powers. I think finally, I've been waiting for this the whole time I've been covering this. I think we have like a new idea, something that's in low Earth orbit that is doing something interesting beyond communications and imaging, and somebody's like cracked the code on that, and it's been inspired by Starship and the economics and the weight that it can carry to space. I think it's been inspired by having multiple companies that can get to space on a regular basis. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I try not to get too excited, but I think by 2035, going way back to the start of our conversation, I think we're in a new industrial era in low Earth orbit. Yeah, I'm buying into that. I'm sticking on that.
All right. I'll take it. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point, Ashley. Like, if space is really going to open up, we need to have some kind of economic use case for space beyond sort of what's happening in communications, observation, and transport today. And that we don't know what that is, and we're all hoping that once launched becomes ubiquitous and cheap, and access to orbit really opens that up, and we find those use cases because beyond sort of government contracts. So I'm eager to find that as well, hoping we do. 10 years from now, I'd love to see launch be a commodity, cheap, much more like airport-like operation, the vision Elon has been pushing for forever. He's getting there with Falcon 9, so I'd love to see that with Starship, eventually New Glenn, Stoke, Rocket Lab, hopefully, other companies perhaps. Hopefully we have like months-long sorties on the surface of the moon with astronauts, and we're finding meaningful things to do there economically, because if it's just flags and footprints and there's not really meaningful economic things to do on the moon, then I'm not sure what we're going to be doing there long term. Hopefully we've sent some cargo missions to Mars. I just don't see humans on Mars within the next 10 years. And I'd love to see like an asteroid return to Earth with platinum or other rare earth metals. I think it's possible to do some asteroid mining and get at least small amounts back within the next decade. So there's lots of potential. I think all of it, though, hinges on unlocking some kind of economic benefit for these space activities, because if it's just governments, it's not going to enable kind of the humans, the multiplanetary species that all of us on this panel, I think, want to see.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Ashley.
The asteroid mining I used to think was just totally nuts, and now I'm here for it, and I think it's feasible, and I want to see it.
Right. I really hope we get to that point. Ashley, thank you so much for being on. You have written 2 books, one about Elon Musk, and also When the Heavens Went on Sale, which just came out. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you guys so much.
Also, Eric, you are a legend. You're all 3 legends. Eric has written Liftoff and Reentry, and they're both absolutely worth reading, as well as Ashley's. Eric, thanks for being on.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be on with Ashley. He wrote the definitive biography of Elon more than a decade ago when he was.
Yeah, you don't need that. You don't need that other Walter one. Just read Ashley's.
Yeah, he got all this information when it was impossible to get, and it was just really an inspiration for me as a writer myself.
Thanks, man.
And Christian, thank you so much for being on. You wrote Rocket Barons and Rocket Dreams, Space Barons and Rocket Dreams. And thanks so much. Everybody should read all of these books, and then you will be the most informed of any one of your friends about this stuff.
Thanks, guys. That was so much fun. Really appreciate it.
We should do a value pack.
A value pack? Yeah, we should. That's actually a really good idea. See, always thinking. Oh, yeah, and Ashley's on Core Memory as well. Check them out on YouTube. Gentlemen, this has been an honor and a pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again sometime. But in the meantime, we have a launch day to do. So we'll see you all sometime soon.
Good luck.
In the meantime,
Good luck.
say what?
Good luck.
Thanks. We'll need it. In the meantime, I do believe we have a playback about Flight 11 explaining where we're at. Let's go take a look at that.
With every new Starship launch, it means we get to know what's new, and while in general the flight profile is similar to the previous flights, there are some interesting differences to note for this launch. As you probably already know, Flight 11 will be featuring Ship 38 on its first and only flight, and Booster 15 on its second. This would be the second reuse of a Super Heavy booster, and as you can imagine, a good number of its engines are being reused as well. In particular, SpaceX says 24 of the booster's 33 Raptor engines are flight proven, although we don't know if those flight proven engines were also flown on B-15's first flight, or if they're a mix from other previously flown boosters. Just as with the last couple of flights, the booster will not be recovered, and will in fact be trying new experiments to gather data for future generations of boosters. In particular, this booster will have a different landing burn profile than normal, and it's one that will be used on version 3. The landing burn will start with 13 engines, as usual, but instead of directly down-selecting to 3 engines, it'll down-select to 5 engines instead. According to SpaceX, version 3 Super Heavy boosters will use 5 engines during the section of the burn that's responsible for fine-tuning the booster's path. That's basically the really scary part of the landing, where the booster has slowed down a lot with the 13 engines, and it's now flying itself over to the launch tower for the catch. This, SpaceX says, will add additional redundancy for spontaneous engine shutdowns. This is something that seems logical, considering that this is the point when the booster starts its flight over to the tower, and with 5 engines they'll have way more control if one goes out than if they have only 3 engines. Another benefit that SpaceX does not point out, but that may be part of this new plan, is that this burn would be more efficient with a lower propellant consumption. It seems counterintuitive, because there are technically more engines firing during the landing burn, but it also means the booster has more power to counter the force of gravity while it slows down and swings over to the tower. The net result is a shorter landing burn that's more powerful and overall more efficient, as there's less wasted force to counter gravity. This efficiency gain can be confirmed by the fact that the planned landing burn duration will be 4 seconds shorter than on the previous flight, or in relative terms, about 20% shorter. We're not fully sure which 2 engines from the middle ring of 10 engines they'll use to go along with the 3 centre engines, but we'll find out soon enough on flight day. That being said, the landing burn will not end on those 5 engines though. For the final phase of the burn, the booster will be down-selecting to the centre 3 engines, as usual, and finishing the landing burn high above the water, like on Flight 10, which will result in the planned explosion of Booster 15. That's right, a planned explosion. I can already tell you, it's not meant to survive that plunge from high above, no matter how much we want it to. The entire reason for the plunge is to ensure that no big pieces of the booster survive and stay afloat for several hours, drifting into Mexican waters. You get the point. That's the plan for the booster, but of course there's a ship up above which will also be doing its thing. Much like on Flight 10, Flight 11 will again feature the deployment of 8 Starlink simulators from the ship's payload bay. Ship 38 will also do another in-space relight of one of its Raptor engines, and there'll be another round of heat shield tests. But unlike on Flight 10, there won't be as many heat shield tests. From what SpaceX has posted on its website, we should only expect the usual missing tiles experiment that they've run on previous flights, but it doesn't mention anything about new materials or anything like that. One important detail they did add about these missing tiles is that several of these will be in locations where the tiles are bonded to the vehicle, that is, glued instead of pinned, and have no backup ablative layer. This means Ship 38 may very well come back with some holes in those places as a result. On previous flights, most of the tiles that had been removed were in places where the tiles were pinned to the vehicle instead of glued, and therefore there is a backup ablative layer behind the tiles. This meant that, despite there not being a tile, there was at least that ablative material protecting the ship. It'll definitely be interesting to see how the ship fares after going through re-entry in that way, and I'm sure SpaceX is even more interested in seeing that, given that's what they're planning to do. Finally, Ship 38 will also fly a path closer to what future ships will take when returning back to Starbase. According to SpaceX, the final phase of Starship's flight trajectory includes a dynamic banking maneuver, and it will test subsonic guidance algorithms prior to the landing burn. Given this language on its website, it seems to imply that this dynamic banking will happen during the belly flop part of the flight. I certainly have no idea what that would look like, but I'm very excited to find out. The ship's landing burn also seems to occur a bit earlier and might be a little longer based on the times from the planned timeline for Flight 11 on SpaceX's website. It'll be interesting to see if the ship also tries to simulate as if it were landing on the chopsticks, which could explain the longer burn time this time around. What's interesting about this flight is that despite the majority of it being similar to the previous flights, the landing of both booster and ship will give us a glimpse into what we'll see next year with version 3 Starships. It's probably going to be a few months until that happens, so we should really take in everything we can about this flight and enjoy the show. That way, at least the wait for Starship's 12th flight won't feel as long.
And we are back at Starbase. Well, I'm not there, but the rocket sure is, and we are just keeping an eye on things. I'm Lon Seidman. I'll be helping host the NSF stream here for a little bit, right through the launch and the cruise and the landings and all of the things in between. And I want to say hello, first of all, to my friend Alex, who's joining us. I know we're going to have a more up-to-date status update soon, but what's the quick update you can give us right now for launch today?
Yeah, we got that rundown of what to expect on Flight 11, and of course, before any of that happens, we are about an hour and 7 minutes away. We have now seen the chill down of the propellant lines to the tower. Those are the ones that run up and sort of connect to the ship. It's like a really tiny vent going on right now on the tower, but that's a great sign. I'm also seeing some of the other camera views as well. Some of those propellant lines on the launch mount are also getting frosty, so we should see the launch mount vent coming up. It's a little bit later than we are expecting, right? We usually expect these things T-minus 1 hour and 20 minutes. So maybe we'll see a 10-minute delay? I don't know. We'll see. Definitely, once SpaceX gives us some more updated information, we'll relay it as soon as possible.
We have some room in the window, so these things can happen. Yeah. And my experience in hosting these things is they don't wheel me out here on NSF until the staff behind the scenes is confident that something's going to happen. So I'm usually a good omen. We'll see if that continues today. And we'll have a much bigger update in a few minutes when we get to the top of the launch count with 1 hour to go. And before we do, though, Alex, we got a lot of folks in the queue here we want to thank. Tim Riley here with a $100 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Luke Ortiz, a $2 super chat. Greetings from Germany with 5 euros from Vanessa there. Thank you very much for that. Bidford with a $50 super chat, talking about the fact that this is kind of a milestone, Alex, right? We're seeing the end of V2 and something new after this, right?
Yeah, the end of Pad 1 as well as we know it right now. That's why our patch is sort of featuring that iconic donut shape. You can see there already the OLM vent, that launch mount vent that I was mentioning here, and some of those lines getting frosty there on the top there. So yeah, great to see. We should savor this and take it in as we are getting ready for the final flight with this hardware here. So yeah.
And it's not just the rocket hardware, it's the ground hardware too. We're going to have something different to look at with the new launch pad.
Yeah, lots of new things, new pad, new... The tower looks a lot like the first one, but it's got a lot of new and very interesting upgrades that we're going to see once it comes online. And so I'm really looking forward to all of that. I'm really, really excited.
All right, and it looks like we have another OLM vent.
Yep. It is currently ongoing. That's part of the chill down, as I was saying before. There are these propellant lines that go to the launch mount and that go to the tower. And those were just essentially at the temperature that is at Starbase right now. And you've got very cold liquid oxygen, very cold liquid methane, right? So they flow this, they let it, boil off and everything. They have this vent that you can see a little bit more active. It'll get a lot more active over time. But that is essentially where we are right now. Just preparations ahead of loading all of this propellant on board Starship.
Great, and thank you to Mark Fetko, for his super chat there. And we also have some love for Jack here, if I can find it in the queue, for conducting that great discussion we just heard with all of those great journalists here on NSF talking about the future of the space program. And we're kind of seeing that future today because so much of NASA's plans kind of rest on what we're going to see today with Starship, Alex, right?
Yeah, this is a critical moment. As I was saying, sort of it's turning the page, right? It's the end of version 2, version 3. We have already seen hardware for docking, ship to ship. We're gonna have that in space refueling demonstration. Hopefully HLS down the line, Mars missions as well. Like that is what's gonna be enabling some of those missions as well. There's gonna be future upgrades, of course. This is not gonna be just version 3 and done. There's more upgrades down the line, but it's the first one where it's like, okay, now we're getting serious, right? So yeah, it's a really important mission today.
And Waco Jones with the super chat here, praying for a good flight, as are we, because we want this mission to succeed, because this is how things move forward. We had a great one on the last mission. And Alex, too, this seems like a much faster cadence now between Flight 10 and Flight 11. Is this the fastest cadence and turnaround we've seen so far in the Starship program?
Not yet. There's been at least one turnaround that's being faster, but this is the second fastest if it launches today. If it launches tomorrow, it will be the third fastest, because, things with Starship, I don't know, it's 48 days. There was another one that was 49 days. So if it delays to tomorrow, it's going to be about the same time. So it's going to become third fastest.
Got it. Well, it's funny, when I first got into this space coverage game, I was following the initial launches of Falcon, and there were some very long spaces between launches, and of course, there was many delays. In fact, I was there in Florida as the countdown got to 0, the engines lit for a split second, and that was it. And I went home without seeing a launch. It looks like Starship, once they get going, it gets off the pad just about every time here. Eric, super chat for $40 for supporting all of our efforts here. There's a lot that goes into these streams. It's amazing seeing how all the different components come together for one of these big streams, and NSF has been doing tremendous work here, and I really appreciate everybody who is contributing to make that happen. Mark Jones here. In this new space age, we have the end of only... Yes, that's true. It seems like we're never going to have the end of first phases, Alex, right? This is the new space age where, we're going to Mars and maybe beyond, and there's always a next phase. So this is exciting stuff.
There's only more and more phases, and once, you said it, right? Like, Mars and then beyond. What is going to be beyond? We don't know. We'll get there when we get there, right? We'll see what we do after that. Maybe, the asteroid belt, the moons of Jupiter, Saturn, whatever, right? Like, that's many decades down the line, but, still, it's a possibility in the long future.
Warp drives and wormholes. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Ooh, that's a long way to go, but yeah.
You never know. It happens quick, right? So there you go. Paul Boyle from just in Ireland, just back in Ireland from Florida, who went to his first launch. And Alex, you finally did get to see a launch coming to visit us a few years, last year I think it was, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that nowadays launches are so common that if you go to Florida to the Cape, you're bound to see, even like for a week, you're probably going to see 2 or 3 launches. Nowadays, this past couple of weeks though, you'd been in a very bad luck streak because the weather has been horrible, and so a lot of launches have been delayed. But any other time of the year, as long as there's no hurricanes offshore and things like that, it should be good to go for launches. So yeah, it's really amazing.
And we're about to hit the 1 hour mark, and it's amazing how fast, when I host these things, how fast that hour goes by. So what can we expect here in the next few minutes? I know we have a big update coming up once we hit the top of the countdown hour here.
Yeah, we're seeing those vents on the OLM, on the tower, just continuing to track here. I would say if there's no delay, that'd be interesting, because that would be a rather quick chill down. This whole thing, as I said before, right? Those are very cold cryogenic propellants that are being flowed through these pipes, right? And so these lines, all of these propellant lines, they need to be at the right condition, at the right temperature, ahead of propellant load. And so that's one of the things that we should be. I just saw. Apparently, the SpaceX clock has entered a hold.
All right. And
that was the
something you were
thing that I was waiting.
anticipating, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because some of these timings were not sort of on track with what we had seen before. But I must say, so for people that might be doomering this in chat, it's probably not going to be for that long because the timings, as I said before, it was like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes later than usual. So that means it's not going to be for a long time.
So, and this is something I think what you were seeing this kind of playing out. How long is the launch window here, though? We have some buffer, right?
Yeah, the window runs for 75 minutes, and if it is indeed about 15 minutes or so of delay, they will still have another hour. So that's plenty of time to use there on the launch window. And that's one of the things that these test flights sort of gives them, right? Because once they start doing tanker flights, those are instantaneous launch windows. They need these windows to have more opportunities.
All right, everybody. Well, just to give you an update here, this is Lon Seidman on behalf of NSF. I'm joined by Alex Romero here, and we are covering the launch of the Starship Test Flight 11. There's been 11 of these, if you can believe that, and every one of them is spectacular. It never gets old. We've got a pretty big update here for everybody to know what's going on. So we're at basically the 1 hour mark at this point. Alex, to start off with, we just got an announcement that there's going to be a hold. We don't know for how long. What's going on?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're sort of looking at here right now. We seem to be in a little bit of a hold. The OLM and tower vents are going, so that's good. Like it's a hold that is just to give them a little bit of time, right? It's not that suddenly we're not doing a launch today. No. This is just that they need a little bit of more time. And as we said, this is a 75-minute window, so they have plenty of time. And so they just need that little bit more, right? And that's what really is important about this. As I said before, these vents are just part of the preparations for propellant load. That propellant load starts roughly at the T-minus 54-minute mark. And so they need to do all of these chill downs and everything, and they need to go through their poll. There's a go, no go poll, and that sort of clears out at T-minus 1 hour and 15 minutes. And so once we have the go for propellant load from SpaceX, that'll be the final confirmation that we are indeed into propellant load. But just to say, if they had actually gone to propellant load right now, those vents, at least the one on the tower will be like dying off, and then it sort of comes back on. We've seen this so many times that we already have it sort of timed, or at least guessed down to like 5-10 minutes of uncertainty, right? So just from the timings that we have seen, we think that it might be like 10-15 minutes or so of delay. So we'll stand by and see what SpaceX says, but still we have not gotten any official confirmation about them actually going for propellant load yet from that go no go poll. So we'll stand by for that.
And so, and a hold like this does not mean we're in any kind of issue here. It's just that they have time to do things correctly, and they may need a little bit more time to get to that decision point. All right, well, also joining us for some updates here is our friend Brian Keaton, who's joining us as well. So I believe on my notes here that you are handling the air and the sea. So what's the air and the sea looking like right now insofar as the conditions for launch today?
Well, I turn up and then they tell me to put things behind me. But we've been keeping an eye on how things are looking. We saw, if you joined us with our Stakeout stream earlier on, we can see those range helicopters coming in and out. That's always wonderful to see. So those are the only assets we're seeing right now for the in terms of the airspace. Nothing of concern in the sea space right now. And as you can see by this wonderful view, the weather's looking pretty good as well. And it's looking so good, in fact, that SpaceX has just verified that they are go for the countdown sequence. So fingers crossed everything proceeds smoothly from this point. It clearly doesn't look like that much of a delay, Alex. Looks like maybe, 4 minutes or so into the window, but like it's a 75-minute long window. They've pretty much got all day to launch Starship.
Exactly. This is the kind of go that, again, we should have expected like by 15 minutes ago, right? So it sort of tracks with what we were saying before. We'll probably get a new T0 soon from the SpaceX website, but that's sort of where we are right now. these things, again, we have been tracking this for so many flights, so many tests, that it's already down to a science, I guess. So when it comes on, like, oh, it's like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you already start to see those things. But yeah, one of the things that I'm looking forward to right now is that tower event should have like its activity sort of dies off at one point, but that is not the indication that it's going to go into propellant load. It's actually when it comes back again, because it sort of comes back again really powerful. It looks like, you see there that there's like a cape behind the tower. It gets a lot more active. It's going to look really, really cool. And once that happens, it's sort of the trail off. It's sort of the end portion of that conditioning of the tower lines, and that's when we go into that propellant load of the ship. There's also going to be a lot of activity, for example, on the tank farm area. There are these things called subcoolers, where they are essentially cooling down the propellant, both the liquid oxygen and the liquid methane, below their boiling temperature, so they are denser and they can pack more of that onto the tanks. And so one of the things that happens is that the subcoolers for the liquid methane are going to become really, really active once liquid methane load starts on both the ship and the booster. So those things are going to give us the clue as to where we are in that propellant load sequence, but we are getting very, very close.
All right, we're getting there, and it looks like we don't have a new T0 time, but things are not being delayed here, at least in a way that would result in a scrub so far here. So things are looking positive, again, which is why they usually roll me out right before launch time here. And I guess while we're waiting for the new T0 time, and I can let either one of you kind of tee this one up, for the people watching who maybe watched a few of these things casually, this launch is not going to look all that different than the last one, but there are some things happening here that are significant, that are going to push this hardware harder than they did last time. So maybe, Alex, we'll start with you. What should we be looking for that's different than the last mission?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to the return of both the booster and the ship, right? We always mention that it's really important for them to be able to bring those back, because this is supposed to be a fully reusable rocket. And so they're testing new things. They're testing a new landing burn profile for the booster. They're testing this thing that they call dynamic banking maneuver during the entry portion, the latter portion of the entry on the Starship. So it's like, I really want to see what that looks like, because we have not seen that, right? And so we're gonna try and get to see all that when they return.
All right, and I think we're going to have a weather report from the field here in just a second, so we will get an idea as to what the weather is looking like. It looks great, and maybe we'll turn it over to Adam now if he's ready to tell us what weather's looking like.
Well, I'm sure everybody always asks for the weather reports, and if Adam's not coming on here like every 10-15 minutes giving a weather report, normally that means the weather's normally pretty good, because I'll go in the back channel and tell people, 80-90% chance that favorable weather, and so there's not a whole lot to talk about, but there is a little bit to talk about. So the graphic that you see here is a weather balloon. So when I give my forecast, it's always a model run. So it's a model forecast. It's predicting what it thinks the wind could be, but to make sure it's correct, SpaceX is going to launch actually more than one weather balloon. They normally launch 2, sometimes up to 3 weather balloons a little bit before launch, about 2 hours before launch, and they collect the data to verify that what they're going to send the rocket into is favorable weather conditions. And that's what this little plot is this is actually one of the SpaceX weather balloons. Circled in yellow, I have the winds aloft. So from the bottom of the graphic to the top of the graphic, that's from the ground going up really high, surpassing pretty much where the air is in the atmosphere. The rocket's going to go further than that, but the region that we have to worry about, winds and wind shear, I'm not seeing anything. Up a little bit aloft, there is a little bit where the winds go from like 5 knots, and all of a sudden it goes up to like 20, 25, 30 pretty quick. That's still within limits. I'm not seeing anything tracking anything like wind-wise conditions like that would be anything. Now, another thing is we also have to think about, yes, it's getting launched from here, but they also have to have the ship splash down in the Indian Ocean. I checked that area. That area seems like it's favorable to do a landing. There is a little bit of wind shear actually out there, but it still seems within limits. And we also have to think about splashdown, because splashdown's off the coast. there is, if we can pull up the satellite, there is actually some clouds, low clouds that I've been talking about that are trying to filter in. That's really not going to have a major impact on anything. Just viewing conditions, there might be a few of those small, little puffy white cumulus clouds around. But the good news is there is some rain showers that are further east out in the Gulf where you can see those thicker clouds just due east. But those rain showers will be getting closer to where the splashdown of the booster will be. But so far, I've been looking at a lot of lightning data, making sure there's not a lot of electrical activity in those, and there is not at this current time. So it's something they're probably monitoring, watching just to verify, that we don't start getting electrical charged clouds. Luckily today, though, we do have a cap inverter, so there's warm air aloft that's actually helping suppress a little bit of the upward development of these showers. So these showers aren't able to get up there really high like last launch, like Flight 10, where we got the big anvils that were spreading over, that could be electrical and causing the scare delays of possibly not being on the launch. So we're not going to have that because we do have a suppression that's kind of putting a lid on those clouds. So
ship needs to leave the atmosphere and then come back in, and of course we also have the booster, which we'll talk more about what we expect to see in a few minutes. Alex, we've got some good news, I hear.
Yeah, we have, as we expected, the launch time has moved a little bit, but we're now counting down, as you can see up there on the clock. It's weirdly, it's like 23 minutes past the hour, so it will be 6:23 p.m. Central, but it's like with 41 seconds. So it's not like right at the top of the minute, which is quite interesting. But indeed, we are now rolling the clock there. So in a couple of minutes, we should start to see that start of propellant load. We can see now what I said before, that the tower vent there has died off. It's like it's now very slow, very just a little bit. It'll come back, and once it comes back, that's sort of like the end portion of that chill down, and then it'll go away, and that's our clue that they are going into liquid oxygen load on the ship. For the liquid methane, which is the first thing that's going to come up in the timeline, that should be with those subcoolers, as I was mentioning before, on the tank front. They're going to become really, really active. So we'll stay tuned for that. We'll keep an eye on that. I'm having all of the feeds here on my other screen.
All right, and Ryan, I'm told we're going to be hyped up here because we've got some hype-worthy video here because we are go for prop launch, and I believe, Ryan, there's a video that we have to point to at this point.
Yeah,
but we need everybody to be hyped.
I'm hyped.
Everybody, we can't play the video unless everybody is hyped enough to play the video. That's how the hype video works. Chat, we need to be hyped. We need to be excited because in 55 minutes' time, we are about to see the final ever launch from Pad 1 in its current configuration of this version of Starship from Starbase. It's bittersweet, but we can still be hyped for it nonetheless. We're going to see Booster 15, Ship 38 going and doing its thing, flying off into the Indian Ocean. Fingers crossed it'll make it. I think we've teased it long enough, Kevin. I think we can probably roll the hype video.
Hype meter is charged. Roll that tape.
Let's go!
Ship 36 just blew up.
Oh my god.
Here's ignition. We have liftoff.
We have 33 healthy Raptor engines.
Restriction cut off.
And hot staging, look at that.
Wow. Fly, baby, fly. Let's go!
The booster is no go for a catch.
All right, we are back monitoring activities at Starbase in Texas. awaiting our launch of Starship test flight number 11. And this is Lon Seidman here on behalf of NSF. I'm joined by Alex Romero and Ryan Caton today, and we've got lots of things to share with you. But before we do, we have some super chats to bring to your attention. Unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine here. Don't want to breathe that stuff in, but we do appreciate your super chat. I nailed it. I got it. How about that? So just wanted to wish you all good luck. We're all counting on your coverage. Jokes aside, thank you as always for your stream. To send off Booster 15 and Ship 38 on a successful 11th flight test. And Bidford is coming in with a $10 super chat to get that hype going. Lots of chat hype here with UK Hudson also joining in on the fun there. So good stuff, and we'll be pointing out some more of these super chats as we go here, including this one from Patrick. So thank you all for your super chats, including let's see if I can get this one. Dahanje Anand, DJ. So thank you very much for your support. So we are counting down here. We have about 51 minutes or so left in the count. We had a hold, but that hold has lifted, and it looks like we have propellant loading going in. And I think our next order of business, gentlemen, is to talk about the tank farm and what's going on there. So I don't know, we'll start with Alex and then turn it over to Ryan.
Yeah, you can see there on the top left view on your screen, you can see those subcoolers, exactly what I said there. Those sort of sideways vents that they have, and they become really, really active. That is confirmation that they are indeed now loading fuel, that liquid methane into the ship. Liquid oxygen load should start in about 5 minutes from now. We'll keep in track of that tower vent, which, if you remember, I said, oh, it's going to die off, it's going to come back, and when it comes back, it's going to be a lot more active. It is indeed, it's now quite a vent, if you will. I was trying to do a pun, but it didn't work. And so about 5 minutes after liquid oxygen load on the ship, we'll get to the booster side of things. So it sort of starts first with the ship, and then and then goes to the booster. And so then for each one, they start first on the fuel, on the liquid methane, and then they do the liquid oxygen. Remember, in space, there's no oxygen. I mean, there is, but it's not something that you can really get into your engines, right? Like, you really need to bring your own oxygen. So most of the rocket, it's in fact like 80% of the mass of Starship is actually liquid oxygen when it is fully loaded with propellants. So, it's a very essential thing that they need to load onto Starship. So, yeah, I mean, going well, man. It's this. I'm really right now. My heart is racing. Words.
It just never gets old. It's amazing. We've seen this is going to be the 11th one of these that we've covered, and it just keeps getting that heart rate going. Ryan, how are you feeling right now? What do you think things are looking like down there?
I'll be honest with you. I had a high heart rate alert on my watch halfway through that guest panel segment we had. Nowhere near the launch, so I don't even want to look at what it's reading at right now, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'm sure it's high. Under 50 minutes to go. I mean, it's always wonderful to see all of the vents going at the tank farm. I mean, this is a mechanical system that literally comes alive, The materials are contracting and expanding as the fluids flow through them. This thing is just, you hear it creaking as it comes to life. And as I said, this is the last time, fingers crossed, that this is going to happen with this specific infrastructure in this configuration, yada yada yada, right? So, boy, we are at the end of a very exciting 11 flights of an era, if that makes sense. But yeah, ever since Flight 1, this good old orbital launch mount literally got destroyed. The concrete got shredded to bits, and it came back for Flight 2, and it's performed flawlessly, shall we say, ever since.
It's amazing how resilient it is, and you can hear that venting going on there and everything coming alive. And one of the things I always love to talk about when we talk about spaceflight is that this is not just rocket science. This is civil engineering. It's plumbing. It's all the things that go into just about any kind of engineering task that you might have is something that goes into this mission. And all of those pieces have to come together to get Starship off the ground. And we are seeing some questions in the chat about what we can expect visually during this launch. So one thing we can guarantee is that there will be explosions today. What we are hoping is that the explosions are not rapid, unplanned disassemblies or RUDs, but rather RAD, which are rapid assumed disassemblies, where these rockets will. Is that good? I'm trying to bring in the 80s,
That was good.
the 80s vernacular, or perhaps rapid authorized disassemblies. So the first one that we're going to see is after the booster separates. It's going to come back down, and of course, we've been seeing some of these boosters get caught by the Mechazilla there, but that's not going to happen today. So that booster is going to be sent into the ocean for destruction, but not before they test some new landing maneuvers. And Ryan, maybe you could fill us in a little bit. They're going to be doing something different as that booster is coming back down again.
Yeah, so we saw on the last flight, Flight 10, they were doing engine experiments there as well. So I'll just quickly run through the kind of different landing configuration we've seen. Ever since Flight 5, with the boosters, when they've come back in for a catch, they've lit all 13 of the inner Raptor engines, or at least the ones that are working, that is, as it comes back down for its landing burn. And then it's down selected to the 3 super middle engines, right, as it then kind of slides over into the chopstick arms. On the previous flight, they were testing a new configuration to prepare if they ever had an engine out. That's a Raptor not working on that middle ring of 3 engines. So they used 2 of those middle 3 engines and then 1 Raptor engine selected on the 13 engine ring, that middle ring, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. This time, however, they're testing an even newer configuration. They're going to start with those 13, all 13 of those gimbaling Raptor engines, but then they're going to down select to 5 Raptor engines. That's the 3 center Raptors and then 2 engines from that middle ring of 13. We're not exactly sure which 2 they are, but it's going to be, one of those 2 engines which is symmetrically placed apart, we can assume. I think that's pretty safe to assume. And then from that point, it'll then down select further to those 3 middle engines. And that way, the landing burn can be slightly shorter. And even though they're technically using more engines, it's actually more efficient because they're going to be using those, the additional thrust outweighs the additional propellant use, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, and this booster was one of the boosters that was caught successfully before. We did have a big debate about whether it's being landing or if it's being caught. So you can choose
It's both.
It's both, right? So, but this one did get caught and landed before, and it's been refurbished and is going back up again. So this is the second flight of this booster. It will be the last flight of this booster. And of course, it will explode spectacularly when it hits the ocean, and hopefully not before all of those mission objectives are accomplished. And then from there, Starship continues its journey. We're going to see those dummy Starlink simulators get deployed from its little cargo bay there, a rather large cargo bay there. And then the Starship will return. And I expect, Ryan, that we're going to see, just as we saw before, stuff melting off of the rocket here. Hopefully things not exploding like we saw last time, but they will be doing more tests of the heat shield and really pushing that thermal protection system.
Yeah, exactly. And first on this booster, I was fortunate enough to be in Starbase for Starship's 8th flight test, and this is the booster that flew on that flight, booster 15. Oh, cool. So, a little bit of sweet for me. The booster I actually saw get caught with my very own eyes. SpaceX is just throwing it into the Gulf like it's your average Monday. Not too happy about that. But anyways, on the ship side of things, we have seen SpaceX removing patches of tiles from various locations around the vehicle. They're not doing materials testing like they did last time. You might remember they were doing some different materials or individual tiles. This time around, they're all the normal material, but they're actually just ripping off tiles in particular places. They're also testing those aft flaps we can see there just above the ship quick disconnect, which is also going to be something to keep an eye out on. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Ship 38 holds up with those bigger patches of tiles missing. I want to be optimistic. I want to say this thing is a big honking bit of stainless steel that's been built in, South Texas in the sun. There's something about vehicles built at Starbase that just make them so resilient to anything you can throw at them. I mean, we saw with Starship's first flight, they tried to set off the flight termination system, but the vehicle was so strong that the flight termination system wasn't strong enough to actually destroy the vehicle. So my fingers are crossed it'll make it all the way through. But those tiles, missing tiles, that is definitely something to keep an eye on.
And again, we may see things melt away that they are kind of aware that they are going to melt away just because they're testing the thermal protection system here. And then, Alex, I believe you're back now. Are we going to see some different maneuvers in the atmosphere too as Starship comes down to the ocean?
Well, as for what might be different, we heard from SpaceX about that dynamic banking maneuver that they called, right? Getting ready for when Starship comes back to Starbase and they start catching ships, right? And so we don't know what that might look like. My whole sort of own theory, if you will, is that it will probably be sort of like a combination of pitch and roll of the ship and try to align itself with the direction of where the tower is. Because when Starship launches from here, from pad 1, the launch tower is facing east, right? So when the booster comes back, it's coming back to a tower that is facing it directly. When the ship comes back, if it comes to pad 1, the ship will be facing, because it's going to be coming west to east, so it's going to be facing east, right? So no problem with that. But future ships will actually be caught on pad 2, because it's the one that is currently with the hardware that's sort of compatible with ship catches. So when that happens, the ship needs to have a way to be able to sort of face south, right, ahead of that catch. And so my guess is that probably this dynamic banking maneuver is both a sort of like a roll in a pitch, so that it can sort of reorient itself to face south and be able to do that flip and landing burn in that orientation. Now, I have no idea. That's a theory, right? That's my own theory. So I just want to see this. I just want to see this, SpaceX. Let's go.
and we have to get through the entire coast phase here. We have to get back into the atmosphere in mostly one piece, and then we can see exactly how that maneuver is going to go. But it's going to be something to watch, and that's one of the things that we'll be looking for today. So we will, again, not see a catch. We're not going to see a landing this time, or however you want to describe it, of Starship. But what we should see is a good test of the booster on the way back down. We'll see it hit the ocean. That RAD, the Rapid Authorized Disassembly, although we have Alan in the chat here who says maybe we should call it RAPID, Radical Anticipated Planned and Intentional Disassembly. So we can come up with the proper acronym for that, followed by, of course, Starship going through the motions there. And one of the things that is amazing, and I hope everybody sticks around for this if you're just tuning in for the first time, is that we're really for the first time in history seeing a spacecraft re-enter the atmosphere and have video live from that spacecraft for the entire way down. And that's due to the Starlink terminals that are on Starship, Ryan, right?
Yeah, I mean, Starship is literally so big that it can transmit through its wake with Starlink connectivity. And, you know, there's thousands upon thousands of Starlink satellites in low Earth orbit right now. SpaceX can communicate with them. With Starship, it has Starlink terminals built into it, and you can see these vents just going here at the tank part. I mean, if this doesn't get you excited, I don't know what gets you excited, right?
It's going to be a lot.
Finish
finish your thoughts. Sorry.
As I was saying, with that re-entry plasma, I mean, Starship is literally so big that its wake is big enough that the Starlink terminals can transmit through them, and they can transmit that live high-definition video back to the Starlink constellation. Even though traditionally, you know, even if you think of like the movie Apollo 13, that, you know, that gut-wrenching moment of like, will they come out of blackout? Starship doesn't have blackout because of Starlink. It's honestly, it's incredible.
And they're getting telemetry too, right? It's not just the video images, but they're able to keep track of its telemetry, collect data, because again, we're going to be basically ditching it in the ocean, so they're collecting all that live data on the way down. I'm sure it really informs the entire process of getting Starship ready for its upcoming missions. Now, booster prop loading is confirmed, Alex, and, you know, I don't know about you, but I mean, we've watched this a million times, but it seems like the venting is more significant than I remember it being recently. What's going on the pad there?
Yeah, and speaking of venting, we just had the shot off of the OLM vent, so that's confirmation that all four main tanks on Starship are being loaded, both of the main tanks on the ship and both of the main tanks on the booster, because, you know, we had the update from SpaceX that they had started propellant load, but the propellant is both methane and oxygen, right? And so the last thing that we were waiting for was the liquid oxygen load on the first stage, and that is currently ongoing. We can see already some of that frost building up on the liquid methane tank of the ship. That's the one up top. And so, yeah, all of that activity, all of those vents that you can see there down below above the ticker, those are the subcoolers for the methane side of things. So those are the ones where the methane is currently like flowing through crazy and everything, and it's getting subcooled. that's why they're called subcoolers. Subcooling is essentially, instead of being at boiling temperature, right? Instead of boiling off and everything, it's just being cooled down even further so that it's denser and they can pack more in the same volume, right? And that's one of the things that enables some of this performance that Starship has to be able to do all of the stuff that they want to do. And that's a liquid oxygen on the ship side of things. But yeah, it's going to get more frosty, more venti, because as they load propellant, the tanks were empty, right? But there's a gas inside. It's not like they're completely empty. There's a gas. So as you fill up the liquid, the gas gets compressed, because you start occupying with the liquid more and more of that volume of the tank. And so you need to release that pressure. And so we're going to see all of these vents coming left, right, and center on the ship, on the booster. Things are going to get more active everywhere. It's just going to be bonkers.
I love bonkers, and I don't think people realize the scale of this thing. I haven't seen one in person yet, but you really have to go and see this, because we're looking at about 30 feet in diameter for this system here. It is enormous, and of course it is multiple stories tall, the size of a small skyscraper that will be lifting off the pad shortly. And Ryan, this activity of fueling Starship, they've actually fueled this system far more times than they have launched it.
Yeah, because back in the earlier days, they would be doing testing of all of each individual component, or rather vehicle, each booster, each ship, it goes through cryogenic proof testing, which is essentially when SpaceX loads these tanks with cryogenic fluid to make sure they can retain that fluid at those colder temperatures. So every single vehicle that's flown has gone through that process. They've also done several wet dress rehearsals. They haven't done a wet dress rehearsal this time around with this particular stack. They literally rolled out the ship only 2 days ago and stacked it overnight. So they haven't done any full stack testing with this particular full stack. However, this is the 11th launch and final launch from this pad configuration. So my bets are definitely with SpaceX on this one, considering that they've flown Booster 15 before, right? They know how Booster 15 works. They've tested Ship 38. I think they've got it in the bag.
Yeah, and once they start fueling, what we've seen is that things typically kind of run on the schedule here, and provided there's no weather or some errant boat or airplane entering in the restricted area, they tend to go. We're about 35 minutes away right now from liftoff, so this fueling happens very close to the T0 mark here. So they basically fuel up and they let it rip. And we also don't need a fuel gauge necessarily to see how far along the fuel is, Alex, do we? We can just take a look on the side of the ship and see that frost line growing. Yeah, other rockets, they have insulation on their tanks and things like that. Starship does not have any of that. Falcon 9 does not have either. So when we want to know where we are at with the propellant load and everything, we just look at the frost. There you can see. That's the methane tank on the booster, right? For people that might not have seen this before, and so it just tells us that it's a little bit loaded right now, and as we count down, that frost will rise because it's so cold. These propellants are so cold that the humidity in the air just turns ice, right? And in fact, it's one of those. I mean, you've got there liquid oxygen. Liquid oxygen. It's like oxygen is like what, 20%, a little bit over 20% of our air. You literally have part of our air liquefied inside of Starship, right? So like it's a kind of propellant that could liquefy the air, literally. And what's really cool, if you haven't seen one of these before, is that as fueling is continuing, we've got some overlays here of the prop load process. We get this cloud that kind of goes all over the ground of all this condensation and venting going on. It looks really cool. So what are we looking at here, gentlemen? Yeah, those are the tanks on the tank farm. There's liquid methane, liquid oxygen. In between, there are liquid nitrogen tanks. Of course, you wouldn't put next to each other liquid oxygen and liquid methane tanks. That's why the liquid nitrogen is sort of in between. It's an inert gas. So between liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen, you've got there literally liquefied air, right? And there's no surprise that SpaceX is setting up their own air separation unit in the future, probably less than a year from now. Here in this view, we're probably going to see that because it's being built across the launch site. So we're going to see that being built. They're going to take the air
It's got nitrogen, it's got oxygen. The nitrogen is used for a lot of this venting that you see there, the subcooling, etc., etc. A lot of the chill downs and tank farm activity is related to the use of liquid nitrogen. And then the liquid oxygen, of course, is being used on Starship for that. They'll also have these purification plants as well for liquefied natural gas. They're going to bring that in and turn it into liquid methane. So really, this launch pad a year from now or even 2 years down the line is going to look so much different. So, savor it as it is right now because it's not going to last.
And so, Alex, what I'm hearing from you is that SpaceX is basically going to get into the chemical engineering and gas business. Is that what you're saying? That they'll be doing some of this on site?
Yeah, normally this is the sort of thing that you will see them actually asking other companies, because there are obviously vendors that, air separation units and things like that are really common. It's a very common industry because a lot of people need oxygen, a lot of people need nitrogen across the world, right? So these are established systems and established companies. So SpaceX just goes to them and they're like, hey, we want this amount of oxygen and nitrogen, and we want it in 5 hours, right? It's like, so instead of having to go to these companies, which again, they are used to supplying all of this, but they're not used probably to the amount of oxygen and nitrogen and all this stuff that they need for Starship.
All at once, right?
Exactly. It's like 5,000 tons of propellant that Starship consumes, right? And so they need that for every single launch, and it's only going to get even more propellant for launch once they start stretching these vehicles and everything, right? So the thing that they want to cut is the middleman. Instead of going to a company and saying, hey, we want this, they're just going to do that themselves. And so that's great.
And we have these cameras in Florida, I believe, are coming up here.
As the sun is setting here in Starbase, it's actually more setting in Florida, further east.
And that's one thing about NSF that's amazing, is that we have cameras all over the place.
Look at that.
And look, that's beautiful. And as much as this is a space nerd operation, it is also a video nerd operation. I happen to be both. I think many of us on the NSF team are as well.
They're
waving
at
these beautiful shots.
There we go.
Steve is there. And we've got live cameras all over the place that are transmitting 24/7. So it comes because of all the support that we have from all of you watching here. So, for example, let me see if I can get this name right. Muahaha Alpha Tango Scary, who came in with a $63.63 super chat. Pointy end up, flamey end down. Let's go. That's definitely what we want to see here. Magic SND, probably about our discussion earlier, wants to know, what about the dilithium crystals? And I think that will come when we get my warp drive, right? Is that how it's going to work? Some antimatter, dilithium crystals, and all that. But one day, mark my words. They already got it. You know that. So Harry Camaro, $19.99. Thank you for your support. What a wonderful day. I wish there were. Wish I were there like last year's Godspeed Starship V2. So thank you very much for that. Muaha also donated 50 Red Team memberships along with Troy Rupert, and those memberships get you into a lot of our 24/7 live streams that you can check out. So thank you everyone for your support. Now I've got a question here that one of you might be able to answer from Toby, who wants to know on a $20 super chat, the aft flaps, 1 meter forward from the lip of the engine sphere, getting it out of the chaotic wake and potentially sparing it damage from re-entry plasma. So was there some movement of the aft flaps? I don't know which one of you might know the answer to that question.
Might be related to what we saw on Flight 10 at T plus 47 minutes, right? That they had a bit of an oopsie there. I'm not sure that's the reasoning. My thinking is related to the Raptor engine chill lines, which, by the way, we should see that sort of activity comes up in about 8 minutes from now, or 9 minutes, I should say, actually, math. but yeah, that's one of the things that it's really important to take into account, that with the damage that we saw on Flight 10 might actually be related to those vents coming off literally where the flaps sort of melt, I guess, if you will. There we go. That's the event, and boom, there. That was not good. There's like an air cover there. Oh, we can see here.
Right.
You can see a little bit of venting. That is not entirely because they are engine chill right now. It's happening later, but because of the engine chills, they're loading liquid oxygen onto the ship, and so those engine chill lines are getting filled up. But they're still not doing the sort of, flowing that liquid oxygen through the engines just yet. That's going to happen in about 9 minutes from now.
Interesting. And then some Norwegian crowns are being donated here from Jared Eldvin. Thank you very much for your support of the channel here. If I can get your super chat up there. Keeps the cameras rolling. Yeah, absolutely. We got cameras everywhere. And as some of you may recall from the first launch of Starship, we had a van, too, that got a bit pummeled by concrete from the first launch of Starship. We called it Danger Van. So that was quite a scene. We'll have to get that footage up at some point later in the show here. So, Ryan, I know you're keeping an eye on things. What are we seeing at Starbase right now?
We are seeing propellant continuing to flow, those frost lines continuing to rise. I mean, just look at this. Everything is getting absolutely frosty and wonderful. Oh, this is what gets you excited, right? You can also see, I believe, that engine chill line going now as well, just out of the aft flap there. And you can see all the way across the mud flats there, the clouds starting to form, starting to flow across. Fingers crossed they don't block out our dune camera that we have there. We have a couple robot cameras in the dunes there. Fingers crossed they stay away. But especially when they did those early morning launches. I mean, I'm glad they don't do the early morning launches anymore, to be frankly honest with you. But when they did do those early morning launches, when they did do them, it was just, so beautiful, so cinematic. But I'm sure SpaceX is going to have some beautiful views as well, as do we, coming up here shortly. And some other beautiful views you can get are some items at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and you can get our beautiful patch, which is now shipping, by the way. It's not a pre-order, it's an actual thing you can buy, and it will actually come to your house in a swift moment of time, because it's done in the nick of time, get it designed, get it produced, and it's now shipping. So if you want the patch, shop.nasaspaceflight.com, you can get it on anything. I've got it on my shirt. You can get the patch. You can get it's on a mug. It's on a hoodie. I mean, you can literally get the patch on anything you like. Shop.nasaspaceflight.com. There you go.
And I hear that the patches, there's only about half of them left. They're selling, so you got to get in. Once they're gone, right?
Yeah, we only order a fixed supply of those, just simply the way that the economics work. I'll stop pretending talking about now. But yeah, we have 50% of the patches. So yeah, once they're gone. They don't come back. I know we've said that 11 times at this point, but some people still ask. Right. I really want one more just to finish out my collection. Sorry guys, once they're gone,
they're gone. And polo on here, it's held up quite well. It's really high quality. Definitely check out shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We're still keeping an eye on things down at Starbase. It's as covering these. This is now the 11th test flight NSF has covered, and of course NSF has covered all that SpaceX does ahead of these things. Launch, it seems like the pre-launch less and less eventful in the sense that move along their usual processes here. The is getting we speak. The frost line is growing up the side of. What is SpaceX doing right now? It's, clearly when you load this much pressure into the world's largest, you've got to be keeping an eye on things, because even it's not easy.
One of the things that we always put, when they load Falcon 9, it's a little bit under 500 tons. And this is more than 10 times, but just 20 minutes. 50 minutes or so. And for both the things that they're probably doing right now, they're loading the propellant, everything, valves, the pressurization system, the propellant systems, like all best moment for them to start going. That sure that everything happen really soon. There are 39 Raptors on Starship, 33 on that booster, 6 on that ship. It's a lot of Raptor engines, and they need to get conditioned ahead of liftoff and ahead of any burn in general. We'll see probably some of those engine chill vents as well being very active once the ship goes into space and all that. So really a lot of things, and it gets even more active in the final few minutes of the countdown. For example, one of the things that should happen right around now as well should be those hold-down arms on the launch mount. Those clamps open, and then the booster and the ship, they are just being held by the pedestals, the arms. They are resting there, and they're not lifting off until those engines ignite and the thrust is the weight. They're just going to be held down by their own weight, which is all. Then we're also going to have a lot of things in the background. Termination system gets armed. They're going to have, switching. A lot of things that happen in the final few minutes. And computers, so many things that I don't know. It's a miracle, right? It's almost a miracle that they can. And this is the 11th time, and not only fly out, but to come to make it come back. It's amazing.
It's also amazing just how much of a beating it takes. Up and tossed around, and the last couple, it's the atmosphere. Here's a fun question back here. This one came from Andre. What is the thickness of the froth? And I would imagine probably towards the bottom, it's maybe the top and in longer. Okay.
The frost itself is just humidity from the contact, exactly, with tank, and then that sort of the outer portions of the frost and or like the cold through the frost, and also. There's just so much frost that you can actually have, right, before it just falls down, because there's so much accumulated there that it just cannot stick together, right? It's sort of like, I don't know, like clouds making rain, right? It's like you have little droplets, they come together, and there's a point where it's like, it's so big that it just comes back down, right? And so that's sort of the process here as well. I don't think it's too thick. It's probably like maybe less than a finger thick, like maybe less than an inch like that. It's probably
right, so we're not talking big blocks of ice here.
Yeah, not that thick.
So SpaceX can't open an ice business. The ice that falls off of it. Well, they do. There was a good amount, a lot of surface area, but very thin. Here's a related question, and I don't know if Ryan made this one. Does Starship shrink it in the temperatures that we're exposing the ship to? This comes from Noxon in the chat.
I'm sure there might be a little bit of a change in the dimensions. Because, this is, at the end of the day, this is stainless steel. It expands. If you freeze it, if you make it really, it'll condense. So we do see some shrinkage. I don't know if that's the right term. The reason why vehicles like Starship, right? And that's simply because they're literally making the material where those noises come from. So, yeah. Exactly. And of course, these vehicles are designed. SpaceX engineers, they're smart.
That's right. And the right kind of thing. There's a lot of different formulations of it. So, next question Wong was the black dots that have you seen those before?
Similar, not to this extent. Like hatches before. This before, because there's literally maybe 20 tiles attached on the wrong side of each flap. What on earth are you doing, SpaceX? They're on the wrong side.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, but yeah, it sort of looks like Like it's a bit sick. Starship is a little bit sick. It just it has those spots, but yeah.
Mark Fetko here says he's videoing the rocket launch from Cedar Key, Florida. The audio picks up your cast in the background. Is that okay to use? I'm sure it's fine. We don't the type that strike down everybody for background audio. We deal with our share of copyright issues here on this channel and also, but definitely take some video. We'd love to send it in. Let us take a look at it after it goes up. One thing that I love, sometimes we have a family vacation every year in the Bahamas, and I've been very fortunate to be right under the flight path of a couple of Falcon 9 rockets to live stream from the Bahamas back to headquarters here for some of our launch coverage, which was pretty cool to see the rocket. So that was neat. I even saw on the horizon landing on a barge, but I missed the shot, unfortunately. But Mark Jones here with a $9.99 super launch day is like Christmas morning. It does feel like we got the anticipation, and we're gonna rocket launching and parts of it explode. That's pretty exciting, right? Okay. And the holiday season. NASAspaceflight.com is a great place to visit. Guarantee they will have something.
We even have the snow, if you will.
It is always like Christmas when you're so there you go. And I'll thank you very much for that. And there are lots of folks watching the stream today eagerly, so we'll keep an eye on launch here, and just so everybody knows, 30 away from the T0 mark, depending on how you define it. Strenuous testing each step between operational Starship and testing Starship. And Ryan, this is a mission where they're going to push the hardware harder because they can.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, with the rest in pieces of Ship 36 a few months ago, all the way back in June, believe it or not, yeah, that kind of upset the SpaceX plan with the final V2 Starships. So ever since that point, they've basically been throwing the boosters into the and they have been testing things out to prepare for version 3 boosters they can. Yeah.
And Alex, we get to the more operational phase here. At some point, Starship, instead of going into the Indian Ocean and exploding like we'll see it do later, it will
on purpose.
On purpose. But remember, there's 2 on-purpose explosions today, which is why you should tune the whole thing. But as Starship in future down to land or get caught, at that point that booster, which is going to be caught first, and then they're going to land Starship in the same spot.
Or even better, once Pad 1 is with the new design of both the tower and the launch, start catching boosters and ships on both towers. You've got maybe the booster coming back on one tower and the ship coming back on the other. Can also loiter in orbit, right? It's going to stay in orbit. Its thing. Maybe it comes back the next day, right? Maybe the next day enough to be able to move away from the launch mount. There's going to be like multiple towers online. Remember, Florida online, so that's really exciting. Towers, that's more launch pads,
right?
And so many more ships back to look at them. Really exciting.
And I've had the privilege to help NSF out with a few. It's amazing when you look across. I got 39A and 39 from the height of its tower. The space shuttle, they refurbished it a little. It's crazy just to the right when you see that much higher, even from 3 miles away. So it's just a until you. It's yet. Have you?
next year. There's also a bunch on studio in the field point and be able to watch a Starship launch myself. So yeah.
Well, I am glad that you got to see. I am glad that you got to come down and see one, which was great because you've been doing this for so long with never seeing one launch, and you also got a bit of an experience, I bet, with the mosquitoes at Cape Canaveral, which can be quite feisty, even with Sawyer's bug spray there. So Ryan, we're about 12 minutes and change from the T0 mark. We're not hearing anything. This has been, not that it's bad hearing anything. If sometimes no news is good news, right?
Yeah. Well, no news is pretty much always good news, and this is something that's so unsettling. I would admit, from the NSF perspective, we haven't had any major problems, which is kind of unsettling because usually there's some problem that crops up exactly when we don't want a problem. So NSF's operations have been pretty smooth, SpaceX operations have been pretty smooth, and we are approaching T-minus minutes and counting. That's the important part. Still counting. I don't believe we have had anything, any rumbles or anything like that from SpaceX. So yeah, fingers crossed, it can go smoothly.
And this is the last. In the next 10 or 12 minutes of this flight hardware's life, it will go through a pretty rad. So be on the lookout for that already as things go.
A lot of people really don't understand that the whole purpose that we expect them to blow up, it's not because it's a failure, but because, like the booster, right? After it's done its landing burn, if it splashes down in one piece and softly and everything, it's gonna be bombing on the water. And that happened already last year on Flight 6, where Booster 13 did this divert, right, to the water, because the tower was not ready for catch and whatever. So they had to divert the booster. It landed softly on the water. It broke off into pieces, that's true. But one of the pieces, the liquid oxygen tank, remained bobbing in the water for too long. And in fact, it drifted south to Mexican waters. So it was it was an ordeal, right? So they do this planned maneuver where it's like the landing burn ends at altitude, so that the booster just plunges to the water and breaks off, and it breaks off in multiple pieces. It's better than a soft splashdown where it's like, well, it may stay intact, and you probably don't want that. As many bits as possible, and then the ship itself, once it splashes down, it'll probably sort of tip over, right? And that tip over, it's not meant to survive any of that. I mean, once they catch ships and things like that, no ship is designed to survive a tip over as much we want to survive, right? Hey, if it does, I'm all for it, right? We'll see what they do with that. But it's a boom that we should expect there, right? No matter how soft or how gentle that landing burn is for the ship.
We're going to call them RADs, Rapid Authorized Disassembly. That's what I'm calling it. So maybe we'll coin a new term here. I did do some research on this term before I introduced it tonight. There were some folks on Reddit talking about RAD before, although not authorized. So that's our spin on it. Hey, while we're counting down here, we got 9 minutes and 28 seconds left, and I want to just acknowledge a couple of super chats that are in the queue here. Brock Bowers, a $500 super chat tip. Thank you very much for your contribution there. Shout out to the team in the field and all those behind the scenes. And he's wondering if Kevin got his new Linus Tech Tips screwdriver. I don't know. So we'll have to have him let us know about that. Space Pope, $400 tip. Thank you very much for that contribution as well. bless this test and this team. Thank you very much. I know everyone's working incredibly hard. I have the easy job here. I'm in my basement, but there's a whole crew of folks who are out and about at Starbase bringing these images to you, and it's not easy. So definitely thank you for all the contributions that help keep the lights on and the cameras rolling here. So Alex, we have some news from
and that was
from
big
the pad here?
support as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are. I mean, right now the word from SpaceX is that everything is really good for launch right at the time that they are targeting right now, and so we are just a bit over 8 minutes away from that liftoff time. So far, the weather is good, range is good, like everything is green, everything is good to go. They're still loading propellant on the booster because the booster is still not fully loaded yet, but it's really already there. It's just a few more minutes away from that. The ship main tanks are loaded. They're just trying to wrap up liquid oxygen and liquid methane load on the header tanks, the two little tanks at the top of the ship, right? Those are the final ones. There's a lot of things going on right now, of course, as they close out all of the propellant loads and things like that. Reminder that T-minus 3 minutes, 20 seconds, that's when the ship propellant load is complete. T-minus 2 minutes and 50 seconds, that's the booster propellant load complete milestone. So just 5 minutes away from ending propellant load. And boy, my heart is racing.
And what's funny is just how fast this hour goes by. You think about, it's an hour, how it's going to take forever. But it's amazing. Like, here we are, 7 minutes away. Now, granted, we've been chatting the whole time, so maybe that's helped pass the time. But I remember being at some of these NASA launches where it's like, I got an hour, and the next thing you know, it's 5 minutes out, and you got to get moving to get all your cameras into position. So I'm sure that the team is out there working hard to make sure everything is ready to go here. Ryan, I wanted to bring you back in. This is the last launch of this variant of Starship and its booster and its ground system. We talked a little bit about some of the changes on the ground earlier. What's going to change visually on Starship after this launch, if anything?
The vehicle itself is just going to be huge. If it wasn't huge already, it's going to get even taller. So even just being on the ground...
It's going to be huger.
It's going to be huger, exactly. Even just being on the ground, it's going to be incredible to see. In terms of going through flight, it's going to look pretty similar, but it's going to have 3 grid fins on the booster in a T shape. I'm still not 100% certain on that grid fin configuration to say, but we're approaching 6 minutes here. I think I can let the T-shaped grid fins out of my head for the next few minutes, and we could just enjoy this final, nice grid fin configuration, let's say, with this version of the Super Heavy booster.
Right, and wait for the next one. And by adding that grid fin, that all comes from the data that they collect on these missions, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're collecting data every step of the way, and when they can iterate, they can, and if they think this design is going to be better, even if it looks cursed, if it works better, then I suppose it's the better design to go with at the end of the day.
Right, and in 5 minutes and change, we'll see how much they've learned as this goes along. And Alex, there's some big changes coming. This is still the old hardware. I'm guessing there have been improvements made to this ship that they've learned from prior missions, but the big changes are coming up in the next round.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited about the next version of Starship. We're going to see Raptor 3. We're going to have a much more improved booster, right, with more power and more efficient systems, if you will. Lots of things that are going to be coming online there. The ship will also be capable of docking to other ships as well, because that's the big thing for unlocking going to everywhere with this ship, right? Being able to dock to another ship and being able to transfer propellant and refilling in orbit, that's the major thing that's sort of, the key to this program.
Deploying real Starlinks this time. We haven't really talked about this yet on the stream, but they will be deploying some of those dummy Starlink satellites like we saw last time, because if they can start dropping off Starlinks as they're testing future Starships, that can help pay for the bills here, Ryan, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think in the background there for a moment we heard Jack shouting, check, check, check. Jack, your microphone works, just so you know.
All right, Jack is ready to go, and And I am just about ready here to turn things over to Ryan whenever you're ready, because we're getting into the critical phase here.
Yeah, 3 minutes, 40 seconds to go. We have pulled the ticker away. That means it's game time. You know it's time for business when the ticker gets pulled away. We can see Starship 38 there sitting. The chopsticks are open. Ship quick disconnect. Still connected for the time being, but expect that to disconnect quickly. That's where the name comes from in just over 3 minutes time. Things still getting frosty.
Ooh, boy.
Very frosty.
Should be seeing the tower vents coming back as they finish load onto the ship. We're getting ready for that.
You don't need a fuel meter for Starship.
Yeah, exactly. We are continuing to watch that frost rise under
there
T
is the tower
minutes
vent.
now. There's the tower vent coming back on. Everything continuing to look good. We're getting a beautiful sunset right now. South Texan sunsets, there's just something about them. I don't know what it is, but it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Rocket ship golden hour.
Exactly. I think it's something magical that just happens in South Texas at this time of day. And I can't explain it, but it's unlike anywhere else in the world. And we're continuing to count down. Under 2.5 minutes now. Things are starting to get real. Deep breaths, everybody. Deep breaths.
Just imagine being the folks in the control room that have to push the button here. Or rather, it kind of goes on its own, but...
Yeah. I mean, even you could hear on the control loops from the first
Looks like booster
Starship
propellant load is ended because OLM vent is back. So propellant load has been completed on Starship. And this thing is still ticking down. I'm only hearing good words. Looks like everything is ready to go. No expecting any holds or anything at the T-minus 40-second mark. Whew. And it's gonna fly through,
Alex.
right?
Deep breaths.
Yeah. So for those that may not know the process, at T-minus 40 seconds, they go through that gate, right? That T-minus 40-second hold point, optional point. They don't expect to take that. Then they'll fly through. At T-minus 25 seconds, we get the detonation suppression system, this mist of water under the launch mount. Then the deluge system kicks in at T-minus 10 seconds. Engine ignition, a few seconds later. Liftoff. The booster will head east over the Gulf. We're going to get, hopefully, that max Q vapor, right? That vapor cone. And hopefully we get through hot staging at T plus 2.5 minutes. Boy, we're getting there.
There's a lot going on. I know we got a minute left here, but the hot staging ring will not be a feature in the future. Is that right?
Well, they'll still have that hot staging ring, but it'll be integrated into the booster's design, so it won't be jettisoned. It'll be a reusable part of the vehicle. It's not a reusable part of this vehicle, though, however, because unfortunately for Booster 15 and Ship 38, it is the end of the road for these two vehicles. We are now going through that T-minus 40-second point. We should be moving through, of course, those updates that Alex is listening into.
We are going for it.
All right, here we go. Under 30 seconds now, and SpaceX confirming we are going through that hold point, approaching 20 seconds in the count. And SpaceX is go for launch. We're go for launch. Everyone in the chat, you've got to be go for launch. Keep an eye on the orbital launch mount, because for one final time, here comes that detonation suppression system, and here comes the deluge. Should be flowing up out of the plate. Here it comes. Here's ignition. Oof. And as we pass through 60 seconds into flight, we can hear the roar of 33 Raptor engines rolling across South Texas, arriving at our microphones. That is a beautiful final ascent from Pad 1 at Starbase, and we are pitching downrange, rolling as expected, headed to hot staging of Booster 15 and Ship 38, and we are now starting to see the vapor expanding off the exhaust of Super Heavy. As the vehicle gets higher, the atmosphere gets thinner, there's less pressure pushing in on that Megamark diamond, and that's why the exhaust starts to expand. I mean, just look at this beautiful shot from, I believe, the Rocket Ranch, approaching 1 minute and 40 seconds, a beautiful ascent, continuing to push towards hot staging. Just beautiful, beautiful final ascent.
Absolutely
we
perfect
should see. Yep, we should see now the roll for hot staging. They roll sort of heads up position for the hot staging. Remember that when the booster flips, it sort of flips up, right? And it flips back for that hot staging. So any second now, we should see that maneuver. And
About 10
it is currently
seconds
underway.
away. Here we go. Rotation
Rolling for
of
hot
the vehicle.
staging.
We are 10 seconds away. Just over 2 minutes and 20 seconds into flight, and we should see the flames flowing through the hot staging ring. Those will be the Raptors igniting on Ship 38. Landing by, the hot staging. We should see that momentarily.
There
Here
we
it
go.
goes.
Here it goes.
Shutdown of Super Heavy, and ignition of Starship. Another clean separation. Up flips the booster. Here comes the boost back burn. Thank you, Booster 15. That's now coming back to the Gulf for this new experimental landing. 13 engines, 5 engines, and then 3.
One engine out on the booster right now, by the way, so actually 12. It seems like one of them did not relight for the boost back burn, but it's okay. It's one of those things with Super Heavy, right, where it's like, it's got plenty of maneuvering, I guess, and margins.
And we can see there that appears to be one of the Raptors on the 13 ring of Raptors, so fingers crossed that doesn't impact the landing burn too much, because for the time being, at least, fingers crossed, those Center 3 Raptor engines continue running as expected.
Looks like boost back burn might be wrapping up.
Some great work here by the NSF team, too.
Exactly,
Yeah,
beautiful tracking shots. There we go, we can see the shutdown now of that boost back burn.
And the hot staging ring should separate.
We're standing by for that separation of the hot staging ring. It's so small on my preview. Has it jettisoned already? I'm trying to see.
Yeah, you have to look at it closely from the ground, but there is that clearance on the top of the booster.
And the booster and the hot staging ring will actually kind of fly in tandem for a little while here, but until it gets to the thicker parts of the atmosphere, there are two very different aerodynamic styles of these two vehicles. They will become quite apparent, because the hot staging ring will continue kind of floating through the air for a little while. The booster, however, will come shooting straight back down through the atmosphere for its landing burn. A reminder, we're not coming back to the launch pad on this final flight from Pad 1. We are going to the Gulf. That is exactly what we are expecting. Booster 15 flying for the second time, done pretty much everything perfectly so far, and is now descending back down towards the Gulf for this new experimental landing burn. We can see a very clear separation now of the booster and the hot staging ring, but very shortly expect the booster to start flying past the hot staging ring.
And the vents that you can see there from the booster, those are planned vents. They're dumping a little of that liquid oxygen remaining on the main tank. They're not going to be using a sort of remaining tank that they have just for the landing burn. So all of the liquid oxygen remaining on the main tank, they don't need that, right? So they're dumping that and getting rid of that. So that's the venting that you can see there. Also a lot of venting from the booster's own vents, right, that it uses as sort of reaction thrusters to be able to maneuver. And so we're now about to see that entry of the booster. It's coming in hot. Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah, just about 20 seconds to go. And we now wave bye-bye to the hot staging ring for the final time. It's going to be integrated hot staging rings from here on out. The booster getting toasty, very, very toasty indeed in the engine bay as it descends through the thicker parts of the atmosphere, literally using friction to slow itself down.
under 10 seconds to go until we should see 13 Raptor engines igniting. But remember, we had one out on the boost bank burn.
Let's see if it works.
We're getting close to the ground here. I can see the trees.
Trying to track
Looking
it
through the foliage.
down. Okay,
Looks
keeping
like,
the track.
Here we go.
Looks like the roof of the Margaritaville Hotel has a better view, but that is a successful boost landing burn ignition. And we seem to have down-selected
All 13
now,
engines
slowing
lit
down.
up.
Wonderful news. We're going to see that hover over the Gulf and then a shutdown of those Raptor engines. There's the hover.
It's with
and here
3
comes
engines
shutdown.
there. Wow.
Whoa.
That's an incredible shot. Here comes an explosion.
Boom, as advertised. and there is your rad, because that was planned, everybody. That is not an unexpected outcome. So successful.
Booster 15, thank you very much. A beautiful clean ascent, a beautiful expected explosion in the Gulf. Thank you so much for your service. The last Block 2 booster to fly. And fingers crossed things are still going well with Ship 38, just over 7 minutes into flight. SpaceX, it would be great to see the ship just being
Everybody at
honest,
SpaceX celebrating, of course.
Yeah, on board with Starship, we can see 6 Raptors still running on Ship 38. This is looking good. Fingers crossed it's another repeat of what we got last time around.
Yeah, and I'm happy to report that all of the 13 engines lit up for the landing burn. Then it transitioned into those 5 engines, right? Successfully. Now we know those 2 engines that it used from the middle ring of 10. And then it transitioned down to the 3 center engines successfully and did that hover. We saw that from our ground tracking, but telemetry and everything. It looked great. It was amazing. It's so weird seeing the booster hovering there above the ocean.
Right. Especially given how big it is, right? This is not.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a building that is just hovering in the air. Remarkable.
Yeah,
and some great video. Obviously, I'll upload until right this second, but some great video of. This is why launching at this hour is just so great for photography, right? You've got that setting sun. Spectacular.
I wonder if we'll have a successful tracking from Florida. I'm wondering. I'm keeping D in my thoughts right now. Speaking of,
like we do a little speck of light on the horizon from Florida.
There
Thank you so much,
is.
D-Wise, rolling out. I think, is that a little bit of a jellyfish? We're getting a little bit of
is a little
venting
bit.
there
Look at
from the
that.
RCS.
Yeah.
Oh, this is absolutely spectacular from Key West in Florida, looking over the Caribbean on the horizon, Ship 38 burning.
Ooh, that looks like RVAC shutdown.
We can see this beautiful formation of the gases. Oh my goodness, this is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And that looks to me like ship engine cut off. And indeed confirmed. Woohoo!
It's like a nebula in the sky. Ship 38. Look at this. Just look at this. Absolutely a beautiful final send-off for this type. There's D-Wise doing the tracking, by the way. Huge shout out to them. This is just absolutely spectacular footage. A beautiful final send-off for the final V2 from Pad 1. It can't get any better than this.
That's amazing.
So I'd say we're off to a good start.
Yeah, and you can see that on board with Ship 38, it is into its trajectory. Next stop is the Indian Ocean, Lon. I'll take a deep breath and hand it back over to you from here. 10 minutes into flight.
All right, so we are 10 minutes in, and we'll let you collect yourself there. Some ice coming off, but that's to be expected. So it looks like they're doing some tests of all the entry activities here as they're getting ready for shutdown in a minute. Wow, Alex. So Dee's got it again. Look at this. And this is what we do here, right? We get everybody out in the field to deliver some amazing shots. And something just popped in the engine bay.
That's just the venting. They're dumping remaining liquid oxygen, just like they did with the booster. And that's what D is seeing right now, because that gas is oxygen that is being vented right now. That's what we're seeing here, illuminated by the sun. But as the ship sort of goes into the shadow of the Earth, right? It's gonna disappear. So just say, we're probably gonna be losing it soon because it's part of the whole thing. We're seeing it because the sun is shining on Starship, but at some point it will stop shining on Starship.
It's going to go beyond the where the camera can see it, but just amazing shots coming out of Florida and Texas, and great work by the team here to get everything in. So Alex, what's the next milestone? We have to burn for a little bit longer here, and then what?
Yeah, right now, oh, look at that. That is gorgeous. So yeah, just waiting.
Sunset.
Exactly, sunset, yeah. So next major milestone should be in about 7 minutes. They're going to be doing that payload deploy demonstration, right? So the ship is slowly turning into the correct orientation for that. Wow, I mean, this is amazing. But yeah, we're going to see that payload bay door open, the Starlink simulators will be deployed, and things like that. So stay tuned for that in just a few minutes.
All right, very good. So we'll keep an eye on things here. And one of the things I'm curious about, so we talked about this on Countdown to Launch the other day, was that the prior Starlink deployment mechanism, by SpaceX standards, was extremely complex for SpaceX, who likes to minimize all the extra stuff down to the core of the essence of the engineering challenge. Do we think this Starlink deployment mechanism will be different than what we saw last time?
It's the same for this flight, and for the for next version, we've already seen the pass dispenser. I don't see any sort of major difference at the very least. So it seems like they're just going to be using this same. It worked, right? It worked on Flight 10, and if it works, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the saying. Sorry, my brain is overloaded right now.
That's okay. We've got a lot to process here, so our computers are hitting their limits, but we have some help. We're going to distribute the workload a little bit, Ryan, because the man who taught me how to get to the moon, that's Moon with a U on Kerbal Space Program, is joining us right now. A big fan, but Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest here who's going to help us look at the rest of the coverage today.
Of course, it is the wonderful Scott Manley joining us for the coast phase of the final flight of V2. Scott, how are you doing this? We've seen a wonderful, beautiful sunset ascent. How are you doing?
Oh, well, that sunset was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, the colours changing on all that. It's much better than the weather I've got here. I almost had my house flooded. But yeah, it looks like we've had a great launch. So everything's looking good so far. And we're now just basically going to be cruising on through the night, which is a shame that it's night because there's a really cool storm in the middle of the Atlantic that we would otherwise fly over. But it's going to be dark. So yeah, we got a bunch of tests on this flight, I expect. But yeah. What do you guys think? Do you have questions? What are we going to talk about for the next hour or so?
Well,
45 minutes.
Yeah, just vibing right now, but there's a lot of things going on, right?
Right.
Yes, there are quite a bit going on. And let me ask you, Scott, what are you looking for with this mission? I mean, obviously you know what's going to happen, but what's the importance of today? Like, why is SpaceX repeating a lot of what they did last time?
Well, I mean, I think they're repeating a lot of stuff that they did last time simply because this is the last of the V2s and they don't see any sense in pushing further. So what they're going to do is demonstrate an engine relight again because they need to be really, really certain that the engine relights are consistent if they're going to commit to it for an orbital mission. So if they get this one, the V3 debut, that would be 3 in a row. That would be pretty good odds of progressing to a full orbital launch. So I think that's like the most important thing for this to demonstrate. They're going to be pushing the limits again on their aerodynamic entry. Again, this is something that SpaceX pretty much developed on their own. So they're really they're being test pilots here. You know, there's no pilot on board, but they do have to fly these different things. So it's you're test flying the vehicle through larger ranges, trying to make sure that it matches predictions, and if it doesn't match predictions, trying to make sure that you've got your bases covered for all the range of operations you're going to expect. So I think those are the two things that we're really going to see in this. Now we have missing tiles. Some of these are the adhesive tiles, which may not have the ablative backing. If we end up with a big hole in the nose, it'll be interesting to see how it handles. Like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong there. And I'm wondering if they'll continue to provide feeds from the payload bay if they end up with holes. I doubt it.
What's amazing is how many holes it can develop and still manage to get itself into at least a somewhat decent re-entry profile. So I'm curious to see what kind of abuse they're going to put it through this time.
Right. I mean, the spacecraft the spacecraft basically continually evolves its ability to fly. So, as for example, if you remember, big chunks of fin start going missing, that changes the performance. The spacecraft is adapting. So, as holes are appearing in this, it's modifying the aerodynamics. It's adapting, right? That's just basically modern technology that the computers can measure the responses based upon their inputs and update them, whereas older spacecraft would have all this literally hardwired. I guess I see we get some views of the bay. Yep, some dumplings. Do any of these have cameras? Probably not.
Yeah, they look like just a bunch of weights like before. What I'm looking for is whether or not they're going to bump the door on the way out. Because that was something we all noticed last time, that they were kind of bumping into the wall there on the way out the door. So let's see how.
Yeah, it wasn't the most stable departure. You could also see some flows, like air flows inside there. That was always an interesting thing to watch. You know, basically, as they reduce the pressure, you're going to get any moisture in the air is going to condense out. You're going to see clouds inside the bay. That's just. Oh wait, the door's already open.
Yeah, and we saw that moisture leaving real quick, right?
Yeah.
That was right before they cut. And it
looks
like
did you see a lightning storm there?
Yeah.
That's cool. Because I guess they are actually flying over this hurricane in the middle of the Atlantic. So that would make sense.
Cool. And what's neat about that shot that we just saw was that the lights inside, you can see that door illuminating from the outside.
It looks so much better.
Yeah.
Like if it would look, it would look amazing as we have some cameras on those things. I mean, we saw Blue Origin throwing out their 360 camera during stage separation. Right. It would be so easy. Like, literally, they have a Wi-Fi on their Starlink. They would just need to throw a camera out the side.
Well, let's see. Maybe we'll be surprised. They often like to kind of show us at the last minute when they have some new thing for us.
Yeah, that would be pretty special if we got it. But yeah.
And what looks different about them? This mechanism looks pretty similar to the last one we saw.
Yeah, I mean, I have to look at them side by side.
Do the Starlink sims look a bit different than last time, or is it? Oh, are they going to be showing the live view from the flap cam on the right?
Oh, looks like
that would be nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be nice.
But I do see a few things like. Does that look like one of them has wires?
It's really hard
or is
to
it
tell.
just me?
Maybe they got a little wired camera on there. That might be kind of neat.
I mean,
yeah.
A very long Ethernet cable.
Come on, we have Wi-Fi. It's amazing how much paperwork and licensing it requires to use Wi-Fi while in orbit.
That's right. That's right. So these have a wire. They don't have to go through any of that.
Well, that would be a terrible way of failing things.
Now, what we're looking at in the inset window here, I think, is from the last
flight.
Oh, that's the last flight, yeah.
Yep. So this is what it would look like. This kind of gets pushed
now,
out.
hopefully, we see it live. Oh, it's moving.
Oh, yep, they're moving up and down.
Just squint.
Yeah, right. Now, Scott, how many
into the monitor?
Oh, come on.
There we go. Sliding out.
First one out the door.
It does look like one of them might have something different. Like the very top one, the final one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some wires up there.
Yay!
All right, first one's deployed.
Go off to join its friends in Valhalla, right?
Right.
Oh, it didn't go all the way back. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
On the previous flight, the one on the back went all the way back. Ha! That's how they solved the
bump problem.
The bump, yeah.
You think?
It went out a lot more stable, right?
Yeah, so far.
I mean, the SpaceX engineers, they sounded very happy with their achievement there, with all of the cheering,
yeah.
So it seems to have worked.
It's got to be amazing to watch something you built on the ground operate in space like this. It's got to be an amazing feeling.
It's like I see a little arm fold up in the thing on the chain just as they brought the extra set down. Either that was a video glitch. I'm just sort of looking at I'm looking at the mechanism lagged here, unfortunately.
Now, Scott, how many
And
of
there we
these
go.
Starlinks do they plan to deploy when they're operational?
All of them. I mean, look, we're talking tens of thousands of these V2 full-size Starlinks, and these are the, not these ones, but ultimately the real things. We've been launching the V2 Mini, which are like, heavier than the original V1. Those are the ones that have the direct-to-cell. There we go.
Yep.
And it goes nice and straight this time.
Yeah. Just the right amount of momentum to get it.
There is a small amount of rotation in that.
Yeah.
Also notice that they are launching these things forward along the orbit. Right? You see the orientation of the spacecraft at the bottom right. Mm-hmm. So it has the top of the spacecraft pointing along the orbit slightly. There's another one going.
That's half of the satellites deployed now.
Yeah.
Much smoother than last time.
Yeah. But yeah, the V2 they're adding more frequencies to cover like the direct to cell, and because they're larger, they can have more antennas on them, so they can actually, in theory, cover more patches. They could, with the V2, because they're closer, because the satellites are larger, they can shrink their cell size and handle more traffic per area. That's where they're going on this.
It's very zen, isn't it?
It is. They've got plenty of time.
They do. I'd love to see
You don't want to shoot these things out too quickly. They could end up hitting each other in real time. Right. So like the real launch will be, they'll have a bit of time.
We've got time to fill here, so this is great.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, there we got one. We got an outside view.
Yep.
From the flap.
So you can see it. Yep. So
yeah, flat cam. Beautiful.
That light there is the inside through the door.
Yeah. I mistakenly thought those were city lights on the previous flight, but now I can. It looks a little bit clearer this time. It actually, I can now see it's the payload bay.
I think they adjusted the camera gains and stuff to account for this.
And that's 6.
Yeah, there we go. Another outside one.
Yeah.
They should have put like lights on them or something so we could see.
Yeah. Have a blink or something.
Navigation lights. But yeah, that last one seems to have something odd. So I'm wondering if we'll see something.
We'll get a little surprise.
Oh, we get another layer to go before we see that.
Right. So I did get into the beta and tried out this Starlink direct to cell. I couldn't make a call, but I was able to send a text to my wife.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I've been using the Apple, with Global Star for a while.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It'll be nice when this comes to everyone, right?
It will be. And the problem now is that because it's still in that very early beta, you have to be in an area with absolutely no cell coverage. And I have this one spot near me. So like you, Scott, I'm a budding aviator. So I'm taking flight lessons. I'm not as far along as you are, but my airport is in a dead zone. So I was able to communicate from our little airport.
And
great.
There goes.
Now, if only you could file a flight plan that way from ForeFlight, it would solve a lot of problems.
It sure would.
Or cancel a flight plan, actually.
Right. Exactly.
They have payphones at every airport because people need to be able to cancel their flight plans.
Let's see. The 8th and last one.
Yeah. Getting closer to the wire one there.
This wire is going to have no significance whatsoever, and it's going to be so annoying.
Well,
it's got me glued to the edge of my seat. What is the wire?
Maybe someone dropped their phone charger whilst loading the Starlings. I don't know.
I could watch this all day long.
Even if they had a full load here, they would be able to launch them all during a single orbit, even at this slow rate.
That's
right. So they don't need to make this any faster.
Yeah.
So that's them all gone.
Quiet after such a period of such intensity of the launch. It's nice to just check out what some Starlings being deployed.
Right. So they're all out. Now, do they close the door now? Is that the next step?
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see this actually closing on the outside. Or hopefully we'll see something, yeah. I mean, I would like to see what would happen if the door failed to close. Like, would they do, re-entry with a sunroof? That would be pretty funny.
That'd be pretty funny. I wanted the Star Wars force field. Look how excited they are for that.
Yeah.
I was excited about it too. This is great.
Yep, there it is closing.
All right.
And
nice.
Beautiful. Nice.
Okay, the pod bay doors are indeed closed.
That's right. And Hal is letting us continue to fly the ship, so we're doing well here.
I think Hal is flying the ship.
That's right. So what's next?
We're going to have a whole bunch of time, I think, until we get to an engine test, right? Is there anything else that we're going to test that I've forgotten about?
Yeah, another 10 minutes, 11 minutes actually, until that. So,
okay.
Bit of time.
And it looks like we'll be appearing on here in a minute here.
Okay.
There we go, back to cameras.
Sorry, I'm a little bit sniffly after getting totally soaked earlier trying to stop my house getting flooded.
That's okay.
That's not great.
We're having a similar issue where I live in Connecticut. We've been rained out here with wind and all sorts of crazy stuff. So, in case you're just tuning in, we had a spectacular launch of Starship. This is the 11th flight test, and it looks like they're every launch gets a little better, right? And this one was just picture perfect on the way up. We got the booster back, and of course we had what I call the RAD, which is the Rapid Authorized Disassembly. So you saw that a little bit earlier, a beautiful explosion, which was planned. And we saw some amazing tests now of that booster landing burn where they lit up, I think, 11 engines and then brought it down.
13, 5, 3, none.
There we go. And that's why Scott is on the call, because I will never remember all those numbers. So far, so good. We're now kind of in the coast phase, and what we're doing now is kind of in a suborbital trajectory. We deployed a number of dummy Starlink satellites. Elon needs to start making some money with this rocket system, so as Starship develops, as future missions go up into orbit, they will be able to deploy Starlink satellites and maybe earn a little bit back on their investment here. And following this, we're going to see some fireworks next, right, Scott?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've already passed through apogee, and we're starting to descend if you look at the numbers. The speed is going up, altitude is slowly going down. So, yeah, we're going to fly over Africa, and around, some point between there and Madagascar, I think we're going to start to see some re-entry heating. Like re-entry heating isn't something that turns on instantaneously. It's something that builds up very slowly. Even at this altitude, you've got some amount of heating from the very tenuous amount of atmosphere here. But yeah, we've got an engine test first before that because, they need to verify it'll work. Like NASA did this with the early Mercury Redstone missions. They fired the deorbit boosters to make sure that they worked before they sent people up there into orbit. They had a very short amount of time on the Mercury Redstone missions to actually test these things. But, they got through that.
And now we're just going to cruise along here. And while we're cruising, we've got a special merch plug that I believe Ryan is queued up to deliver us. We have a tribute to the OLM, which is the last time we'll see a Starship launch from the OLM that we just saw it launch from. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that, Ryan?
Orbital-ish launch mount, maybe, because of course, as I mentioned many times throughout that launch commentary, this is the final ever flight from this configuration of Starship pad. So if you want to celebrate a wonderful celebratory design as usual, we are renaming OLM from Orbital Launch Mount to Original Launch Mount because, of course, it was the original design that got a little bit destroyed on the first flight of Starship. They then kind of jerry-rigged a metal plate in there to try and make sure it didn't get destroyed on all of these subsequent flights. But this design, although kind of janky, although kind of bodged together, it served the test of 2 years of time, right? It served SpaceX well for 11 flights from what is kind of a glorified test stand, but it's done its job. It's done its job well.
It's there on the left.
I can also see this is so small on my preview. I'm literally zooming or kind of getting really close to my prompter here. Is that a human for scale or is that Jack Bye for scale? I can't quite tell.
It could be both. Unless Jack Bauer isn't a human, are you suggesting that Jack is something else?
Well, I'd imagine when we have Jack Bauer for scale, we'd show like the average height of a human and then Jack, because Jack's really short. You won't
And you'd
appreciate
have him in
the
orange,
same.
right?
Well,
That's true.
If it's
I
Jack,
like
he's holding
it.
up a piece
That
of,
is-
you gotta
that
have
is
the-
wonderful.
That's really, and he's got to have the bacon up for scale too.
And we've also got the danger van getting struck from that first flight. Beautiful sticker design. And of course, this is pinned in chat. So if you want to get our celebratory merch, shop.nasaspaceflight.com, the link is pinned in chat. I mean, we also have all of our other merch, but especially if you want to celebrate this final flight from what has become, let's say, an iconic launchpad design, shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We've also got the patch, over 50% of those sold already. When they're gone, they're gone. We've said this a million times before. You guys know the deal. Pinned in chat, all of that stuff. The collection is live. Yeah, some wonderful designs I will certainly be picking up myself.
I wish I had merch. I'll just say that. You guys do an awesome job. Like,
Fly safe and all that. I mean, you do have
it
potential.
is so
Scott.
hard to do this well. I'm envy in awe of the work that you put into this stuff, and you have so many awesome designs.
You and me both, Scott. I have a coffee mug. That's all I got for my
Yeah, I have a coffee mug that says, as a pilot, it says, "I love ailerons." That's how I roll.
That's good.
That's how we
I just
roll.
have my logo on mine. So that's good stuff.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I got a super chat here from Chris Peck from Berwyn, Pennsylvania, who says that the OLM disassembly begins in 12 hours. Is that right?
I guess with the first shift tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah, they're just getting right to work on it.
They should cut it
it's
up
like,
and sell pieces as merchandise.
There you go.
They strike
That's how
the
they're going to fund Block 3 Starship. They're just going to slice up the launch pad and sell bits of it on their website, the SpaceX fan. I mean, there are some people who would spend, many, many times more than a bit of steel's worth on some launch pad proven steel.
Well, maybe we could all go out and do that. We could sell it through our store. That may be kind of fun. Get that taken down pretty quick. Daniel Green with a $10 super chat. A shout out to D Wise for some awesome footage that he was able to get from us. That shutdown was amazing. So thank you very much for that. And Bidford with a $20 super chat to thank us for the coverage. And here's one from Ron Smith for Scott Manley. Think we will get a Starship reference mission 3B? I'm not sure what he's referring to. Maybe you do.
Oh.
I'm not sure what he means by Starship reference mission 3B. Would that be part of HLS? I think that would be that's the only thing I can think of he's referencing here.
Maybe you can let us know in the chat there. We'll get it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, why me? It just sounded to me. I don't know, Scott, if you remember this sort of like, what's it called? A reference mission, like Mars reference mission plannings or things like that NASA has done like every 10 years or something like that. Yeah. It kind of sounded like that. I don't know. That's why I chuckled.
So many other things that they will do.
And we've got 10 gifted memberships from Elizabeth Hochner. So thank you very much for that. And what we're doing right now is we are in the cruise phase here. We're waiting for plasma is what we're waiting for next, because that's when the real fireworks begin. I'm curious, gentlemen, exactly how much of a toasty rocket we're going to see here. We've seen on the last number of successful missions that we're able to get back into the atmosphere that those grid fins get, or the what do they call them, flaps? What's the right terminology for the? I should know this as the host of the show.
I mean, they're not really flaps. I call them control fins, but they're not actually acting as fins. They're kind of like air brakes. Yeah, there's probably a technical name for these. Flapperons. I don't know.
Flapperons. There we go. I like it. I'll take that. And what's been crazy the last couple of flights that got into the atmosphere was the fact that they were burnt to a crisp. You could see the steel just melting off of it, and yet they were still able to direct the ship. And as Scott, you talked about earlier, there's some adaptive coding in the master computer here that keeps it on track. Do we think we're going to see more of this? I mean, I would imagine on the last flight they were probably weakening the thermal protection system in some portions just to see how far they could push it. But
yeah, I think the real question we've got is, will we have those explosions in the vents that damaged the rear fins? Because if you remember, there was these two, black bangs, and that damage propagated out to those rear fins, flaperons, whatever. And if the front ones didn't have that problem, they were fine. So I think that's what we're going to be looking for. If that doesn't happen, will be great. Sure, they may have pulled some fins here, some tiles in the fins, whatnot, but that's the that's the old one in the corner. I'm like, wait a second.
But we don't see the flash there. But that flash is probably just the reaction control thrusters keeping things level. Is that what we're seeing here?
It's never quite clear what that is, but yeah, we would expect that when you blast a bit of gas out into the atmosphere, it's gonna get heated up very quickly because it's slowing down. So, like the reaction control thrusters, because it's just cold gas, they're not producing light. But when you blow it out into the airstream, which is very tenuous, that will generate light because you're massively increasing the surface area of the cross section. So that's what I think that is. Either that or it's a camera which has some weird settings. But I think this is just due to periodic vents and stuff. But I would love to figure that out.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat phenomenon there. And Ryan, what do you think SpaceX is doing right now as they're cruising through space here?
I think everyone in mission control is just sitting tight and getting ready because we are a few seconds away, about 40 seconds away, from one of those Raptor sea level engines reigniting for that in-space burn demonstration. So I think they're probably, maybe getting a little bit nervous, but fingers and toes, Alex, are going to be crossed in mission control as they get ready for this burn in about 20 seconds.
Yeah, if this doesn't happen, it could be bad in the long term,
Right.
Yeah, they need to be able to deorbit Starship. This thing is huge. Imagine this thing. People get upset when the Chinese leave huge boosters floating around on uncontrolled trajectories. Imagine a Starship doing that. So they want to be able to prove they can deorbit Starship.
Right, and as we've seen, a lot of it survives when it comes back down. So,
and you can see the attitude on the bottom right. Mm-hmm. Oh, there is.
Is the ignition
indicator?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There it is. Looks like the video is lagging. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, and we get some chunks of popping around there. Presumably ice.
Third attempt, and we just did it 3 times in a row. So
3 times in a row is pretty good odds at this point.
Yeah.
And we're going to hopefully get 4 times in a row with the debut of V3.
And Scott, should we be, from an engineering standpoint, are they concerned at all about ice getting ping-ponged around the inside of these rockets, or is it moving?
Sure, I think it's probably fine. These things deal with some pretty high, powerful environments, but I think they're more concerned with ice that gets trapped in places and stops venting. I think that's a bigger potential problem because the ice can only get projected out by high pressures. So if it's plugging up something, then it's possibly causing a problem upstream. There's no place for it to project ice that can damage the external, thermal protection system. So I don't think they're worried about that. But sure, you could always imagine a scenario where it goes bad. And now we're really starting to see some nice colors.
Yeah, there we go. It's starting.
We are seeing also on some of the other reviews, by the way, just real quick. Cars have head out to the pad, so that's great news. The pad is good. And also, it's rather quick. Like, we're less than 40 minutes. The ship is still in flight. Usually, it's like an hour and a half until they're back on the pad. So that's great news. The transport stands that were there on the roadblock also moved away. So great news all across, of course, on the ground. But the show here is the ship.
And we see our man in Florida still watching this, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Gotta post this right away.
And here we've got a great shot, I believe, if I look at my notes in the chat from our internal chat here. This is from Julia Bergeron with a shot from US-1 on the Space Coast. So even when rockets are not launching from the Space Coast, they're getting beautiful shots on the Space Coast. So there's always something to see on the Space Coast. Not very often do I get to see anything in Connecticut, which is where I am, especially when I'm locked in my basement lair.
Me neither.
Although I've had some good ones. Yeah, that's right. Although we do get from Wallops, we will occasionally get some really good views. We had a great one of a couple of years ago that we streamed up to NSF. Actually, my first activity with you guys was to send you some stuff from Connecticut. So now we're starting to see a little bit of plasma, gentlemen. Ryan, is that what we're
seeing
at here?
clouds, so we're moving towards daylight. So, the last launch was in the middle of summer now, or was closer to summer. Now we're closer to winter, so the southern hemisphere has more daylight.
But yeah,
and that impacts the launch time decision too, right?
They want to launch and land in daylight. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's why they moved from those super early morning launches, which I'm sure none of us are too sad to see go. But yeah, that's why they pushed to the evening launch, because of course evening in Texas is morning in the Indian Ocean, which means they get the daylight buoy cam and drone cam. Will we get buoy cam again? Fingers crossed it's still out there. I wonder if they replace it or if they put a new buoy. We'll have to wait and see.
Would you be able to tell if they replaced it? I think they put them out there and it sits still, and then they bring them back, and if it survives, kiddie pool in the middle of the ocean.
I just think it's remarkable that they can hit the spot like that.
Right, that was the big question always with this, re-entry capability. Could they learn to control it first, and then could they control it to the precision required to make these precision touchdowns? And I think they've conclusively proven that they have this capability, even with damaged spacecraft.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible if you consider the fact this thing has travelled 2/3 of the way around the planet, and it lands mere meters from its target.
Right, it's not a pure ballistic entry, it's a gliding re-entry that they are able to control to place it exactly where it means. They have terminal energy control, basically, to adjust their impact point and then slow themselves to essentially zero horizontal velocity over the target, and then descend and do the flippin' bird.
I think Dean might have found themselves some friends in Key West, because there's some people who seem to be very interested in what's happening on the stream right now in the top right hand corner.
They're like, it's a rocket thing, you wouldn't understand.
They're in good company now. And we can see that glow starting to I guess, get
more
brighter,
intense.
glow more, more intense, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's telling that you can no longer see the clouds behind it. So it's got so much more intense that the thin clouds that we saw down there are now being, blinded or whatever.
I do recall, Scott, I don't know if you remember, there were some shuttle flights where they tried to fly the shuttle, in orbit, but really low, and there was this weird interaction between, I think it was the atomic oxygen in the upper atmosphere and the shuttle itself, and it had this same glow during the night. It was super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because you're in this tenuous atmosphere, and it scales every 8 kilometers it goes down by a half. So even a small difference of 50 kilometers has a huge difference in the amount of atmosphere you're encountering. It's vacuum as far as your body is concerned, but when you're slamming into it at 7 kilometers per second, it has an effect, a noticeable effect, visible effect, but not much in the way of drag.
Right now we're in the orange phase, soon to be the multicolor phase, right? Use my layman's vernacular here.
Right, I mean, so what's happening is as they're coming down, the energy levels of the atmosphere, they'll get more and more ionized, so you get different colors as you start to get deeper and deeper in.
And go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, once you're really deep in, you get a traditional kind of black body, and it's just looking white. But these are the much more tenuous things where you're having atomic transitions producing the different colors.
Yeah. It looks like they're starting entry, and everything is great to go. Good attitude.
Yep. So yeah, it's basically pointed straight up with a 90-degree or 10-degree angle to the airflow. Essentially stalling its way down. And this is, of course, their ideal orientation. They get a little bit of lift, and then it's enough to lift their descent vector up allow them to flatten out and maintain altitude at about 70 kilometers, I think is what they aim, as they bleed off most of the speed. And that's the phase when they'll actually perform these turns to try to control, their target point.
And one big difference that we're seeing here compared to last flight is that it doesn't seem like the aft flaps got damaged yet. I guess it's the key word,
That's
right?
It
looks
pretty
good.
see explosion.
Yeah, no explosion yet. It happened at T plus 47 minutes, so we'll keep an eye on things. But so far, so good, right?
A lot better. And Scott, there are some. Looks like there's some tiles on the back of the flap.
And they're damaged as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what they're thinking is with putting those there, because, I mean, I guess it's nice. If you get some spare tiles, we don't want to put them on the front. We've tested those. Let's stick them on the back.
Right.
Yeah, apparently they are testing different ways of pinning them. Like they're trying to test for future versions of things like that, like different ways of pins and mechanisms, and a few of them seem to not have worked, and so they fell off already. But that's really interesting, right? It's
but
like
those are the ones that seem to
it's
get
free state.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like everything here is experimental, and if you can get away with performing as many experiments as possible, you use it.
Might as well. I remember early on in the program, I remember joking to Dan from SpaceX, being like, you guys should put some experiments on those flaps, because you can really do a lot of things during re-entry.
Stick some Oreo cookies on there.
Yeah. It looks like they listened to you by putting some stuff on there.
Yeah.
So things are looking good. So how long does it take to go from where we are now to splashdown?
What's the timetable say? It's like 15 minutes?
Nerve-wracking. Exactly, you're right. The splashdown is expected roughly 1 hour and 6 minutes after liftoff, but the bulk of the entry, it ends roughly 15 minutes after the start. So, but it spends quite a while in belly flop, right? So it takes a while.
It's a gliding re-entry, essentially. They're controlling it, so they're trying to keep it above the thicker part of the atmosphere to reduce the stresses on the heat shield. This is what the shuttle did, right?
Right.
Look at that.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
This is where it really starts to pick up.
Happy SpaceXers.
I think one of the tiles on the aft flap just flew off.
It's kind of wild. Oh, look, there's another piece going.
With the chopsticks, because the chopsticks are going down as well, so we just thought we'd show that to you momentarily.
Okay, we see chunks coming off in that the trail there. It is like when you see those pieces coming off, you see that they sort of slowly move backwards. That just gives you an idea of how low density the atmosphere is that they're moving through. Because these things, they're like styrofoam, polystyrene, right? That's their density. Think how quickly those would slow down if you threw them out of a car, right? They would stop instantly. But this air is so thin at this altitude that they barely accelerate backwards. And yet, something goes on that causes them to break off the rocket. So what are the forces that are doing that?
One thing I'm not seeing are sparks like we saw. Maybe it's still early for that, but before, as things were failing, we were seeing sparks from the stainless steel getting hit with this plasma. So far, this looks a lot healthier.
We're really pushing it. We've removed these tiles.
Yeah, maybe they haven't added an explosion.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're missing tiles, so I would expect a few sparks, but maybe it's not yet there, right?
Right. So where are we looking for missing tiles? Oh, there's a spark. There, we got one.
And sorry, Ryan, you were about to say something. We have a little bit of a delay here in our internal comms.
Yeah, I was just saying, we've got about 10-ish minutes just over to go until splashdown. I mean, that flap cam on the right-hand side is quite evident of how many tiles have disembarked the ship, shall we say. But it's still continuing to push through.
We're finding out these are the experimental ones, right? These are not needed for re-entry.
So how many of those were there after we reached orbit? How many have fallen off since we got to orbit? Versus how many fell off during descent? Yeah?
Or just about. There was more on the right-hand side than there is now. But it looks like perhaps the ones that are staying have They have some good material there. So they'll. But
Differential
it looks a lot
testing.
better. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, like
during ascent, that's when you're going to get the most dynamic pressure on these tiles on the backside.
Right.
So if they've fallen off now, it's not air pressure or airflow that's doing this. It's some other process. Like it could be that these just sort of vibrate or something and they shake off. Boy, I would love to know exactly what goes on with some of these things.
And one thing that we're not seeing is the fin here melting, so that's good.
Yep.
Usually we were seeing a lot more intrusion of plasma at this point, so that looks to be like they've made some progress on that weak spot.
Yeah, we haven't had any camera views from inside the engine bay since re-entry started. We had a few of those.
It's looking great so far.
Remembering back to the last flight, there was that little energetic event, I called it at the time, in the engine bay. So it's peculiar that we haven't seen that particular view since the in-space relight. Fingers crossed it's going okay.
Oh, I love that color.
Yeah.
Now we're up to the purple phase.
Ah, yes. And yeah, we're starting to see some more sparks.
Yeah. When you see sparks, it means something is ablating away, right? To be expected, because we have missing tiles.
Through peak heating now, apparently, from SpaceX.
Yeah, so they bring it down to about 70 kilometers and they try to cruise at that altitude for a while.
I think they're going into daylight because we can see a few clouds there rolling on the right-hand side.
Yep.
Yeah, get some much better views.
Wow.
And now their G-loading is...
There we go, engine bay cam.
Yay, finally. So again, that's looking
right. Whoa. But it looks intact. Question mark as things fly about.
Right.
So, wait, the camera's on the other side this time, right? Because previously the engine bay camera was looking up, wasn't it? Now it looks like it's looking down.
We'll have to go back and look.
I think I remember that. Maybe they just flipped the video.
Could be.
Apparently they had an issue with the engine chills. They're confirming now that indeed the little boom that they had last flight was due to a blockage there and static buildup ignited it. And that's what happened.
I don't know how you can get ignition from any of this.
So they're not, but what they're saying is they're not having a problem with the engine chill on this flight. That sounds like they're going to crash. That's what I thought you were about to say.
They modified apparently a few of the... I couldn't hear exactly the full explanation, but they modified some of their processes to be able to solve that.
So we're reaching about 1 G of deceleration now if you count that speed going down.
Yeah, and you can really see now that we're hitting daylight. I mean, this ship is booking it right now through 66 odd kilometers, right? They are going... I mean, they're going over 22,000 kilometers per hour, under 70 kilometers in altitude. I mean, this thing is going so fast. And in under 10 minutes time, or about 10 minutes time, this thing is going to be 0 meters per second.
You'll notice how it's now pitched forward a bit. So it's now, I think that gives it a little more lift, rather than the ultra-high angle of attack. So it's near like 45 degrees, which is like an optimal attitude for basically lift.
Yeah, it's keeping the altitude, as you said there. It's very solidly in 65.
Yeah, that's like intentional again.
Wow.
So the question, what I'm looking for now is it going to roll left or right to adjust its down rate, its like steering?
Look at the flap. It's starting to glow.
Yeah. Yep. But it's not melting this time.
Yeah, we saw that last time, for sure.
Yeah. And Scott, this might be an elementary question, but I would imagine that some of what was learned on the space shuttle has probably made its way into the design here, because to some degree there are some similarities in at least the high altitude aerodynamics here in how you slow down and how you approach entering the atmosphere with a large craft that's somewhat able to glide. Is there anything learned here from the shuttle that's made its way into this, or is this something SpaceX
yeah.
started from scratch with?
I mean, look, I think, you'll find that SpaceX were talking about how they needed to have this packing mission, this crunch wrap around the edges of the tiles to stop heat penetrating. That's literally something that Space Shuttle had, right? All of these tiles are very similar. This approach and terminal, energy management is very, very
It's a bit
similar.
turned, right?
Yeah, it does look like it's turned a little to the south. And I know that they're supposed to do some maneuvers, but I wasn't quite clear on when they were going to do these maneuvers. At this point, they just need to make sure they hit their target site. So, they're basically controlling their cross range and their down range.
Apparently, from what they've been saying, don't be surprised if you see the ship turning when it's in belly flop. So it's during the belly flop maneuver, right? When it's in that skydiving portion. I'm really looking forward to that.
They're just going to spiral it down like the space shuttle did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ideal, right? Because you want to arrive over your target and essentially spiral down, remaining within range. That's what the space shuttle did. They had this whole, these cones that the space shuttle would fly around. And if they didn't have enough energy, they would use a tighter cone. And if they had too much energy, they would use a much wider cone. And I'm presuming that Starship has a similar set of constraints, a similar strategy for terminal guidance.
Heading alignment.
Very similar to an engine out on your aircraft too, right? And it's a similar kind of process. You just
don't turn away from the airport.
Right.
Get close and then spiral down. Yeah, you can see a little bit of see the mount points on the bottom.
The
near the
catch
timer. Yeah, the catch pins. That's it. Yeah, those are really showing some heating there. And we would expect that because that is not a wide surface. That's a much, much smaller surface and therefore a tighter radius of curvature.
On the indicator,
really
on the bottom
low
right?
angle now. Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
Now, are we
That's
past
crazy.
the peak heating point?
We are, but still getting. It's getting hot, right, Scott?
Yeah, and we're also at a higher G loading damage just due to that. Ooh, that looks like fire.
Yeah.
Angry fire.
Getting toasty now.
Yeah, this is the point where it's like the air is dense enough that you're not getting these nice, colorful atomic
Wow, it's
transitions.
turning the other way.
Right, it's like black body
look at this
radiation.
banking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, look at that.
So that was the maneuver we were expecting here, and that's what's different here with this flight was this dynamic. What do they call this? Dynamic.
Temperature's coming down.
Dynamic bank.
Dynamic banking, right? Look at that.
So,
That's crazy.
So they're doing this to see how much cross range they can get. And they did this in the space shuttle. Particularly flight number 2 was the one where they pushed all the the stuff.
Ooh, G-force.
Oh yeah, we finally got our G-force 1.6.
Max Q.
Yeah, max Q on the way down is at a higher altitude and higher velocity.
I will say, so far it's looking better than it has on prior flights as far as things not melting away or exploding.
Wow.
So that's good.
The engine camera is crazy right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a different engine camera compared to the one we saw some time back.
I think they might have two, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe one that's 60 degrees offset. I'm not, or 120
Which makes
degrees
sense.
offset. Yeah.
It's just based on the stuff flowing. Yeah.
Well, I
And
do
the
have
other
it.
seem to look at engine 1.
I do want to put this super chat up here real quick. Who from a viewer who calls them Elerons. Elonerons.
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 There you go.
I think I'm not sure he came up with those. I'll say that. We've had air brake steering for a long time.
Yeah,
Those are really nice G's.
Like the B-50, the
1.6,
B-2
that's right.
steers with little air brakes on the wingtips. Not really, but they do use brakes. And the space shuttle had that as well. But they were like the tail that would split.
Right.
And that's how it would control its speed during its final, circle around and land. But these are different
Speaking of
again.
which, we're still is largely. Oh, there.
Yeah,
Little
now
spark
we're
there.
only going about Mach 9.
Oh my.
Oh, yeah. The G-forces were really nice. Like I did not see those going up beyond 2. Ooh!
Oh, aerial assets. Here we go.
Aerial
Looks like the drone cam
assets.
is going to return.
Let's go.
So we are going to have our second, hopefully our second rad of the day here.
The flip is 1 minute 6 seconds, 1 hour 6 minutes flat. The excited landing is 25 seconds later.
Excited.
So Brian, let me ask you this: if you know when I think of this
banking
flip,
maneuver.
Here we go.
Okay.
I'll ask you after.
It's apparently, about to start.
Okay. What's it gonna do then?
See the clouds. Beautiful, beautiful Indian Ocean.
Yeah. Doesn't look too rough.
They're calling it a half moon turn something, and a twist at the end. I don't know. It's a weird explanation. SpaceX, we love diagrams, please.
Yeah. I would like to know. I'm wondering if it's the Kerbal thing where you basically flip it upside down so you suddenly start descending more quickly and you get much tighter precision on your landings. I would do that all the time.
Yeah.
It's because it's so easy to overshoot your target, so you would just, flip it around.
Just drop it.
Yeah. We're close! Drop it!
So Ryan, what would the belly flop and the flip feel like for an astronaut inside one of these things? I can't imagine on the way down that being comfortable.
Yeah, I would say, unless they have some sort of gimbaled seats, I wouldn't really want to experience it. Yeah, I mean, it depends where you're sat. If you're near the center of rotation, then maybe it's not that bad. But it doesn't seem like it would be the most comfortable thing if you are unexperienced. I'll put it that way. Yeah. I'm sure there's some astronauts who would be more than happy to try it out.
Look at it go. Look at it go. It's doing something.
It's sideways. It's literally sideways.
It's turning sideways. But, yeah, I actually flew an aircraft recently which did a similar flip maneuver for takeoff and landing.
Oh, really? How did that feel?
Once you're used to it, it felt totally natural.
Look at the attitude.
It's turning.
On the
It's
indicator.
like it's on its side.
Yeah. It's like doing, the rotating away. I don't know. It's weird. But it's doing what I said, right? Like it's facing now a bit south, right?
Yep. And this is controlled flight here. This is part of the maneuver that they wanted to test today. So this is all.
So is this perhaps so that they can land at Starbase without dropping massive sonic booms on Mexico? Sorry, America, because they don't care about Mexico.
It could be. Right?
Yeah,
it's all part of that. Right, it's all part of the plan to get it. Yep.
Okay.
Wow.
Looks like it's going a bit more flat now into that belly flop.
Yeah.
But it is. They're actually turning it during this belly flop, which is we saw that previously. Yeah, it's now subsonic, and we're starting to see bits come off.
And belly flop.
Right.
So it's now oriented south. Look at that.
Wow.
It's now oriented the way that it should to be able to land on Tower 2, because Tower 2 is facing south.
Yep.
So when it does the belly flop, the landing burn.
So.
Oh, now it's rotating back. Notice that?
Yeah.
So yeah, when it's in the belly flop orientation, it does have forward velocity to it. So that's how they would steer it in. It's not much forward velocity. It's probably 10% of its vertical speed. But when they fire up the engine, it picks up a lot more.
Right.
Look at that fin flipping up and down there.
Yeah.
It's trying to cancel out some oscillations or something.
Well, I think Chris B is going to be very happy to see that we've got some space shuttle-esque activities going here. We have a glider, and we're
That's right.
Controlled flight, controlled glide. It's amazing.
Raptors have chilled out for ignition.
Yeah.
So everything is prepared.
So we're about 1 minute, just over 1 minute away from ignition, and the
it's still turning.
Yeah, it looks like it's hunting for some position.
We've got some tiles.
Yep. Doesn't matter at this point. Well, except
they've done the job.
Unless you're trying to make it rapidly reusable.
Making its turn for final approach.
Here we go.
All right.
Yeah, glide slope of 80-degree glide slope.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, this wider angle. Oh
This is
my
as if
goodness.
it was behind the launch tower, apparently. So it's simulating that.
This is a lot like my
And coming up soon. Yeah. Coming up soon should be that landing burn.
Yep, here we go.
Yeah. 20 seconds until the landing burn and flip.
2 kilometers, 6,000 feet.
It's a pretty fast drop.
Deep breaths.
Buoy.
Buoy cam is
Come on.
activated.
3,000 feet. Landing burn!
Through the clouds.
There it goes.
Oh, here it goes. The shedding tiles.
Oh dear. It's kind of fun to see that from the camera.
And
There it is.
And
Down.
the landing shot.
And where's
Touchdown.
the red?
And it's
Yeah,
not
there it
looking
goes.
orange this time.
No.
Explosion? Question mark.
There
There
it
it
is.
is. We can see
Yeah.
it.
Wow,
The
that's a
cloud
lot of stuff.
explosion of Starship 38.
See that?
That was incredible.
That was amazing. So we promised 2 explosions and we delivered, everybody. So
Yeah.
there you go. Planned explosions, not ones that were not anticipated. So it looks like I think we can call this one a success, everybody. What do you think?
Yeah.
They did what they planned to do.
Yeah. And onward to the next revision. So amazing. So this was another amazing flight. I mean, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here with everything we just witnessed. But so are we going to see another Starship launch, Ryan, before the end of the year, or this is it for now?
That was the big question, you know. This is what we were all asking, shall we say, before Ship 36 flew up, and then with the delays, everything kind of looked a little bit more unfortunate. But there are some rumours you might have seen on social media. You know, Elon would really like a flight before the end of the year. Whether they'll actually do a flight before the end of the year, I mean, what's the date now? October 13th? The pad isn't finished, the vehicles aren't finished, they're still playing with test tanks. I mean, I have to say it's looking unlikely, but we played a video earlier in the stream saying, when do you think the first Block 3 launch will be? I have to say, the average from that video was kind of like springtime, say February, March, and my gut is going with February, March as well.
It's going to be so
I
much
think that's
taller.
yeah. It is. How much taller? I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but for those tuning in,
Just a tiny bit.
Tiny bit?
But it's got a lot of, that tiny bit, counterintuitively, it really adds a lot. We've got replays already?
already. Wow.
Really?
Alex, it's been an hour and 8 minutes, and you're like, got replays already?
Yeah, some of these other missions, of course, the mission ended a lot sooner than an hour and change. So here we've got the liftoff here. And Scott, they always take a little bit of a turn there to clear the tower. Is that the maneuver that's planned?
I believe that's now intentionally planned, yes, to avoid anything falling back onto launch things, because we've seen bad things happen for sure.
Yes.
And a lot of bad can happen when you've got a fully fueled rocket of this size.
Yes. You don't want to get too close to that one.
Oh, man.
Just amazing.
I'm sort of glad we've managed to get through like 11 launches and not had one explode on the pad during takeoff.
Knock on
It may
wood on
happen
that
one day.
Right.
I think this
some
is
beautiful
one of our
knockdowns
North Beach robotic trackers here. I mean, that is just incredible. You just see it, you know, that pad avoidance tilt, and then off it goes. It unfortunately goes out of range of our tracker there, but that's definitely coming in the trailer for the next flight. I'll put it that way. That was beautiful.
Here's another view. The water deluge
Our
is even.
south side.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah,
always
this is the
love...
last time This is the last time we'll see that water deluge system because it's retired. Powered 1 is retired. That kind of last minute bodge they put in for flight 2, it did the job.
Right. And you think about all that work they had to go through with the regulatory agencies and everything else to make that happen, and they're moving on to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shower head had its own character.
Right.
I like that it would kind of squeal or scream just before takeoff as it blew all the air out.
Amazing.
It's like the rocket would howl.
And to the left there is the